Chapter 262. There were a total of 20 sects in the Maoyan mountain range, and each sect was now under the control of the Qingsong school. No one dared to challenge the authority of the Qingsong Taoist. Because the Qingsong Taoist was a nascent soul stage patriarch, he represented God in the Maoyan mountain range. But today, someone came to challenge the god of the Maoyan mountain range. The Qingsong Taoist looked around. He was now in the martial arts practice field of a sect. This sect was also affiliated with the Qingsong school. Even the head of the sect was personally appointed by the Qingsong Taoist. It's the Patriarch Qingsong. It's the Patriarch. That's great. We're saved. Patriarch, save me. Kill that arrogant demon. Patriarch, you have to uphold justice for us. The moment the Qingsong Taoist appeared, the sect, including the elders and disciples of the Jindan period, saw hope. They cheered and knelt down to welcome the arrival of the Qingsong Taoist. They all knew that their sect was saved. The appearance of the Qingsong Taoist was like a reassuring pill to them. Everyone believed that the Qingsong Taoist would bring the arrogant young man to justice. Then the young man slowly walked out and coldly glanced at the elders and disciples kneeling on the ground. His gaze was like the gaze of the god of death, and the air instantly became austere. Everyone stopped cheering and didn't dare to speak again because they felt as if a cold knife was placed on their necks. As long as they said one more word, their heads would fall to the ground. There was a new grave in the martial arts practice field. The soil on the grave was still wet. It was dug out by the young man with his own hands without using any tools. The grave was surrounded by white paper money. There was a tombstone in front of it, and 3 incense sticks were inserted under the tombstone. In front of the grave, 3 people were kneeling there in horror. They were the elders of the sect, and one of them was the head of the sect. The 3 of them were all at the 6th firmament of the Golden Core realm. Normally, they were lofty figures in the Maoyan mountain range. However, under the oppression of the young man, they had no ability to resist. These 3 people's faces were very pale, and their bodies were covered with shocking wounds. When they looked at the young man's figure, it was as if they were looking at a heinous demon king. The Qingsong Taoist felt that this young man looked familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him before. His eyes fell on the tombstone and saw the words on it. Then, his pupils shrank. He understood the young man's identity. "Let them go," Qingsong Taoist said calmly. He was the emperor of the Maoyan mountain range and had absolute authority. Even if the young man gave him the feeling that he was invincible, he still had to maintain his authority. The young man was very proud and aloof. He stood there like an unreachable mountain peak. The murderous intent he emitted made people shudder. He stared fixedly at the Qingsong Taoist, and the killing intent on his body grew stronger and stronger. "Defeat me, and they will live. Otherwise, you and the other 3 will be buried together with the people in the grave." He's too arrogant. How dare he be disrespectful to Ancestor Qingsong? Kill him. Long live Ancestor Qingsong. All the disciples began to shout, cursing the young man's insolence. No one had ever dared to speak to the Qingsong Taoist like this. They hoped that the Qingsong Taoist could show his power, take down the young man directly, and teach him a lesson for his arrogance. The Qingsong Taoist had already unsheathed his sword and pointed it at the young man. When he saw the inscription on the tombstone, he knew that today's battle was inevitable. Ancestor Qingsong has made his move. This arrogant boy is dead. The moment the Qingsong Taoist drew his sword, everyone was in awe. They had never seen the Qingsong Taoist make a move before. Since the disappearance of immortal Jiuhua, no one in the Maoyan mountain range could compete with the Qingsong Taoist. No one dared to challenge the dignity of the nascent soul stage. As long as the Qingsong Taoist looked at him, even the sect leader of the 9th heaven of the Gold Core stage would have to kneel on the ground. However, they forgot that the young man who dared to challenge the Qingsong Taoist was also a nascent soul stage cultivator. A broadsword as heavy as a mountain came from the young man's hand. It was so heavy that it made people's breathing stop. Then the broadsword and the Qingsong Taoist's flying sword intertwined. A terrifying wave spread out with the 2 swords as the center, sending everyone flying. The fight between the two produced a huge destructive force. The ground was deeply cracked, gravel flew, and the plants were turned into powder. The fight between the two nascent soul stage cultivators turned all the facilities in the martial arts practice field into nothingness. Boom! The Qingsong Taoist's body smashed into the ground, creating a big pit. He panted slightly and held the Qingsong sword in his hand. His breathing was chaotic, and his hair, which was always neatly combed, was scattered. There was also a sword wound on his chest that was so deep that his bones could be seen. He had never been so embarrassed. Even when he was controlled by Luo Shang 4 years ago, Luo Shang had never hurt the Qingsong Taoist because of Qingyin and Qingmei. Since Luo Shang and the others left the Maoyun mountain range, no one could restrain him. Due to the power of the slave pill, he had to obey the people of the Luochen mountain, especially the unfathomable Fenghaochen. However, the people of the Luochen mountain stood aloof from worldly affairs and did not order him to do anything. Jiuhua Taoist disappeared mysteriously, and the Qingsong Taoist became the supreme cultivator of the Maoyun mountain range. In the past few years, he had retreated behind the scenes and let Bai Liang manage the Qingsong school for him. He lived like a prince, enjoyed the happiness of family, and lived like an emperor. Other than the occasional visit to Fenghaochen, there was nothing else that could make his heart tremble. However, this person's arrival 5 days ago broke his peaceful life. He had no choice but to keep the appointment and fight to the death with the other party. But he lost. He already knew the result. Facing the person in front of him, he had no strength to fight back at all. This person's sword was too domineering. Every swing of the sword was as heavy as a mountain, which shocked the Qingsong Taoist. In particular, his body movement was extremely fast. There seemed to be no spiritual power fluctuations, but his sword was earth-shattering. His cultivation was so terrifying. Many people around looked at the young man in the air in horror. Like an indifferent demon king, he seriously injured the Qingsong Taoist with one sword and also ruthlessly shattered the hope in everyone's hearts. Their mighty patriarch pine tree came here, thinking that he could bring this rebellious young man to justice. No one expected that he would defeat the Qingsong Taoist so easily. He defeated the god in the hearts of the cultivators of the Maoyun mountain range. Patriarch Pine Tree was defeated. Fear and despair began to spread deep in everyone's hearts. Their supreme Patriarch Pine Tree could not withstand one move from the young man and was defeated so thoroughly. At first, they thought that Patriarch Pine Tree could defeat the young man and establish the supreme dignity of the Qingsong school. However, all of this was defeated by the austere young man in front of them. How could they resist someone who even Venerable Pine Tree could not defeat? Could it be that this young man was going to change the dynasty of the Maoyun mountain range today? The change of dynasty in the Maoyun mountain range had happened once 4 years ago. At that time, the winner was the Qingsong Taoist. Because of this, the Qingsong Taoist became the respected venerable in the Maoyun mountain range. However, Venerable Pine Tree had only been in power for 4 years before this young man appeared again. The change of dynasty could only be achieved by people with supreme cultivation. These small fries could only kneel down and surrender. In the cultivation world, where strength was respected, they did not have the right to choose their king. It was strange that the fight between the two nascent soul stage cultivators was so destructive that the entire martial arts practice field was destroyed beyond recognition. Only this new tomb was not disturbed at all. Even the paper money was not damaged. Most of the people present knew this insufferably arrogant young man. Even the Qingsong Taoist had a deep impression of him. The young man, wearing mourning clothes, slowly landed beside the tomb. He silently stared at the words on the tombstone, which were carved by him personally. They were deep into the wood and powerful. Master Boyang Doran's tomb is erected by the unfilial disciple, Gu Yiqian. That's right. This young man, who looked like a killing god, was the dark horse in the competition at the Qingsong school. He was also the disciple of Boyang Daoren of the Qintian school, Gu Yiqian. The Qingsong Taoist was now in the Qiantian school. This school used to be the second last. Later, it won the second place by relying on a dark horse. Originally, when he thought that Gantian sect was about to flourish, the pine tree Taoist stepped into the nascent soul stage and reshuffled the cultivation world, destroying this small sect's hopes. Taoist Boyang also met with a calamity. The young man in front of him was the dark horse of the past. He was the invincible Gu Yitian of a younger generation in the Moyun mountain range. In the end, it was Taoist Boyang who asked him to go easy on him that caused him to lose to the pine tree sect disciple. However, after a few years, Gu Yitian surprisingly stepped into the nascent soul stage. When he returned to the Qiantian school and wanted to find his master, he learned that Boyang Dorn's arm had been cut off by a traitor and he had disappeared. He was afraid that his soul had returned to the ninth heaven. Gu Yitian was furious and severely punished the traitors of the Qiantian school. Those who betrayed their master and ancestors had already become ghosts under his sword. He couldn't cultivate since he was a child. However, Boyang Daoren saw that he had a firm mind and took him in to walk the path of body cultivation. The path of body cultivation was difficult and dangerous. Ordinary people couldn't imagine it. At that time, the cultivation world in the Moyun mountain range was in chaos. He had to choose to leave the Qiantian school. After going through untold hardships, he walked out of the Moyun mountain range. Under the guidance of a master, he stepped into the nascent soul stage. When he returned to the Moyun mountain range to find his master, he learned that his master had died. Gu Yitian personally built a tomb in the martial arts practice field of the Qiantian school. It was an empty tomb. He couldn't find Boyang Doran's body, so he wanted to find someone to be buried with him. He issued a challenge to the Qingsong Taoist and invited him to his master's tomb. He wanted to defeat the Supreme Venerable in the Moyun mountain range in front of everyone and let him apologize in front of his master's tomb. Because it was the Qingsong Taoist who destroyed the future of the Qiantian school and caused his master's accident. He didn't know when his master passed away. The day he came back and learned the news of Boyang Doran's accident, he treated it as the anniversary of Boyang Doran's death. Today was the 7th day of his death. Kneel in front of my master's tomb and kowtow to apologize. Then kill yourself to apologize, and I'll let go of the other people in the Qingsong school, Gu Yitian said calmly. The broadsword in his hand sank into the ground. That sword made everyone present so scared that their legs went soft. Your master's death has nothing to do with me. The Qingsong Taoist stared at Gu Yitian. He never thought that the body cultivator would grow to the point where he could defeat him one day. What had he encountered in the years when he disappeared? How could his cultivation improve by leaps and bounds? Gu Yitian's eyes flashed. He said, "If it weren't for you, how could the Qiantian school have changed? How could my master have died? You have sinned deeply. How many innocent self-cultivators have you killed for your own power? You should have known that someone would come to deal with you one day." The Qingsong Taoist smiled bitterly. Although he had lived a good life in the past few years, it was all given to him by someone else, including his cultivation. Even now, he was someone else's servant. He used to be a brave and resourceful person. Luo Shang gave him a chance to unify the entire Moyun mountain range. This was his dream, and he had never regretted it. To achieve great things, blood must be shed, and blood must make enemies. He thought that with his cultivation, he didn't have to worry about anything. Gu Yitian's arrival made him realize that he should be vigilant in times of peace. Just kill me. I won't kneel to Boyang Daoren. The Qingsong Taoist was unafraid of death. In the past, because of his daughter, he had no choice but to kneel at Luo Shang's feet. But now, Qingmei and Qingyan had gone far away, so he had nothing to worry about. He had unified the entire Moyun mountain range and become the Supreme Venerable. He was respected by thousands of people and enjoyed great glory. Even if he died, he would have no regrets. Then I will personally use your blood as a sacrifice to my master. The broadsword soared into the sky and appeared in front of the Qingsong Taoist in the blink of an eye. The blade flashed with a cold light and swept toward the Qingsong Taoist's neck. Chapter 263. Clang! The 3-foot-long sword knocked away the insufferably arrogant broadsword and dispersed the biting, cold, murderous aura like a startled swan, pulling the pine Taoist back from the gates of hell. A figure slowly appeared beside the Qing Song Taoist. His expression was very calm, and he didn't change at all because of Gu Etien's appearance. After a long time, the Qing Song Taoist found that he was still alive. He was stunned for a moment and opened his eyes. When he saw another young man standing beside him, his face was full of shock. "You are..." The Qing Song Taoist's voice trembled. He looked at the new young man in disbelief. His steady and thick aura was more than 100 times stronger than his. He was also a nascent soul cultivator. "Senior Qing Song, are you okay?" Muyu smiled at the Qing Song Taoist. After all, the Qing Song Taoist was Cheng Yin's father-in-law, and Cheng Yin was Muyu's senior brother. Therefore, Muyu still treated the Qing Song Taoist as a senior. You are Muyu." The Qing Song Taoist came to his senses, and his eyes were filled with ecstasy. "You have also stepped into the nascent soul stage?" When he said this, even the Qing Song Taoist felt that it was unbelievable. He had wasted his life in the Moyun mountain range and only stepped into the nascent soul stage with the help of Luo Shan. However, these two people walked out of the Moyun mountain range and became stronger than him in just a few years. Why was this? He glanced at Gu Yitian and then at Muyu. These two youths had once shone brilliantly in the competition, but at this moment, their cultivations had actually surpassed his. "Don't worry. With me here, no one can hurt you." Muyu put his hand on the Qing Song Taoist's shoulder. Majestic spiritual power in his hand continuously flowed into the Qing Song Taoist's body, dispelling the arrogant sword qi in the Qing Song Taoist's body. Then he looked at Gu Yitian. "I remember you. You and I still owe each other a competition." Gu Yitian recognized Muyu, but his expression was calm. He wasn't surprised that Muyu had become a nascent soul stage cultivator. If Muyu was only a Jindan period cultivator, he would be surprised. In the past, in the competition of the Pine Tree sect, Muyu had been defeated by Gu Yitian. However, Gu Yitian had never acknowledged that battle. He knew that Muyu deliberately went easy, and the Qing Song Taoist and Jinren stepped into the nascent soul stage. And the Moyun mountain range began reshuffling, so he didn't find any opportunity to fight with Mu. "I just want revenge. After revenge, I will fight with you seriously." Gu Yitian looked coldly at the Qing Song Taoist behind Muyu. The murderous intent in his eyes didn't diminish at all. Muyu frowned. Where did this hatred come from? It was his desire that indirectly caused my master's death. Gu Yitian waved his hand, and the broadsword returned to his hand. If the Qing Song Taoist didn't want to annex all the sects in the Moyun mountain range after stepping into the nascent soul stage, then the Qiantian school would gradually walk towards glory under the leadership of Boyang Daoren. However, that reshuffle caused Gantian's sect's dream of rising to the top to collapse. Muyu laughed. His laughter was very playful. He looked at Gu Yitian and couldn't help but admire Gu Yitian. Gu Yitian walked the path of a body cultivator. That path was extremely difficult and difficult to walk. He relied on his tenacity to walk out of the Moyun mountain range where demon beasts roamed freely. This courage made Muyu admire him. A trace of anger appeared on Gu Yitian's face. "What are you laughing at? You're always so one-track-minded. You want to challenge people at the drop of a hat, as if everyone owes you something. If your master knew that you build a nondescript grave for him, he would definitely break your legs in anger." Muyu still couldn't hide the smile on his face. In the past, Boyang Daoren had been injured by people from the Jiahua school. At that time, Zhu Wenxing had brought Boyang Daoren, who had lost an arm, to the Luochan sect to make an example out of him. However, the Luochan sect wasn't something that a small character like Zhu Wenxing could covet. He was directly captured and humiliated by Muyu and the others. Boyang Daoren was also rescued. "I always thought that you were an opponent worthy of me taking seriously. I didn't expect you to be so shallow. Anyone who disrespects my master deserves to die." Gu Yitian was finally enraged. He didn't understand the meaning behind Muyu's words and thought that Muyu was mocking him. He was instantly enraged and swung his broadsword at him. Mu Yu dodged, and the broadsword followed him like a shadow. However, his footwork changed a lot, and he dodged the broadsword's edge. "Why didn't you fight back?" Gu Yiqian asked angrily. "Because I don't want to compete with someone who is blinded by hatred. I know that the competition in the past was insulting you. I've always wanted to have a fair fight with you, without any burdens or worries. I don't have to go easy on anyone, and I don't have to fight for anyone. It's just a pure competition. However, your state of mind is unstable now. You're no match for me at all. Even if I win, I won't feel that it's a fair fight." Mu Yu's figure flickered, and the broadsword couldn't touch him at all. A sword user's greatest fear was an unstable sword heart. Gu Yiqian's heart was in chaos. His master's death had been a great blow to him, and Mu Yu's words had provoked his anger. His swordsmanship had long since become chaotic, and he no longer had any sense of propriety. It was impossible for him to catch up to Mu Yu. However, the hatred in his heart didn't dissipate because of Mu Yu's words. On the contrary, his endless anger grew stronger and stronger, and the hostility of the broadsword in his hand grew stronger. "Anyone who stands in my way of revenge must die." Gu Yiqian roared, and his broadsword stabbed at Mu Yu again. "Your master isn't dead. What revenge are you taking?" Mu Yu said slowly. The broadsword stopped an inch away from Mu Yu. Mu Yu's words made Gu Yiqian freeze in place, as if he had been struck by lightning. "What did you say?" Gu Yiqian's sword moved forward another inch. "Your master isn't dead, but you built a grave for him. Do you think he'll break your legs if he finds out?" Mu Yu shook his head helplessly. "How is that possible? You're lying to me." Gu Yiqian's sword trembled slightly. He really hoped that Mu Yu's words were true, but everyone in the Qintian school had already confirmed that Boyang Dorn's arm had been cut off in public. He had been taken away, and there had been no news of him since. Everyone thought he was dead. "What? From your tone, it seems that you want your master to die before you're satisfied? What nonsense are you talking about?" Gu Yiqian scolded angrily. The broadsword in his hand moved forward a third time, and was already at Mu Yu's neck. The cold light pierced his skin, making Mu Yu feel very uncomfortable. "Tian stop." Boyang Dorn's voice came from behind Gu Yiqian. The moment that familiar voice rang out, Gu Yiqian felt as if he had been struck by lightning. The broadsword in his hand fell. He turned around abruptly and saw Boyang Dorn in mortal clothes. He looked like an old man from the countryside. He didn't have the majesty of a sect leader in the past. His left arm was empty. He stood there, but Gu Yiqian's eyes immediately turned red. "Mas, master?" Gu Yiqian was stunned. He fought outside the Moyin mountain range and tried his best to become stronger so that he could come back and help his master bring the Qintian school to glory. However, after he finished his studies and returned, he was shocked to hear the news of his master's death. It almost made him collapse. Now that his master had appeared in front of him, he felt like he was dreaming. Boyang Dorn also looked at Gu Yiqian. This disciple who had always made him proud was now no match for the Qingsong Taoist. If Elder Sun and Bai Liang hadn't found him, he wouldn't have known that his disciple had returned. Looking at Gu Yiqian, a proud expression appeared on his face. The proudest thing in life was that his disciple had surpassed his master. In the past, Boyang Dorn had been rescued by Mu Yu and the others in the Luochen sect. Those who knew that he was still alive were later killed by perfected Joa sword. Therefore, except for the people of the Luochen sect, everyone thought that Boyang Dorn was dead. At that time, he had chosen to leave the Luochen sect and live in seclusion in the mountains. Only Elder Sun knew his whereabouts. Fortunately, Elder Sun was able to find him today. "Master." Gu Yiqian walked to Boyang Dorn's side and knelt down heavily. He buried his head in Boyang Dorn's feet, his body trembling. Even a man of steel had a soft side. His master was everything to him. He was also the reason why he had become stronger in the past few years. Every time he wanted to give up, he would remember that his master was still trapped in the Qintian school. He couldn't fall. When he found out about his master's death, he was so furious that he wanted to bury everyone with him. It wasn't until his master appeared in front of him that the hatred in his heart gradually faded. "Get up. You're a nascent soul cultivator now. Don't kneel so easily." Boyang Daoren was filled with emotion as he helped Gu Yitian up. As a master, he was proud of his disciples' achievements. Now, he didn't need to be afraid when facing the nascent soul cultivator, Qingsong Taoist. His disciple wasn't any weaker than the Qingsong Taoist. Master, it's good that you're fine. Gu Yitian wasn't good with words. He liked to keep everything in his heart. A man doesn't cry easily. His spiritual power shook and the tears at the corners of his eyes dissipated. Master, Boyang Daoren's tomb. Why is my name written on this tomb? Brat, are you cursing your master to die? Boyang Daoren read the words on the tombstone. His face darkened, and he slapped Gu Yitian. Gu Yitian didn't dodge. Boyang Daoren couldn't really hit him. Even if he did, it wouldn't hurt him. The master was still the same master, and the disciple was still the same disciple. When a master taught the disciple a lesson, the disciple shouldn't resist. The broadsword moved again. The empty tomb turned into powder and disappeared from the martial arts field. Boyang Daoren already knew what happened. He knew that Gu Yitian did everything to avenge him. But at this moment, nothing was important. What was important was that Boyang Daoren could finally hold his head high in the cultivation world. It was a great blessing in his life to have such a powerful disciple. Muyu looked at Gu Yitian and suddenly found that he and Gu Yitian had a lot in common. Both of them worked hard to save their master and wanted to compete with each other fair and square. They didn't like the deception of the cultivation world. The only difference was that Gu Yitian had succeeded in what he wanted to do. With him, Boyang Daoren would no longer be hurt. However, Muyu's master was nowhere to be found. Gu Yitian's opponents were just a few insignificant people in the Moyin mountain range. Muyu's opponent was the supreme ruler of the entire Sanshong continent, the mysterious Sanshong Palace. Muyu still had a long way to go. Let's go. Let's catch up. Tian you should also apologize to Venerable Qingsong, huh? Boyang Daoren's hearty laughter covered the entire Qiantian school. This was the happiest thing for him in many years. Senior Qingsong, I was rash. Gu Yitian didn't disobey. He silently walked to Qingsong Taoist and bowed. He was a one-track mind. A mistake was a mistake. Since his master asked him to apologize, he really did apologize to Qingsong Taoist. After all, the cultivation world belongs to the younger generation. I didn't lose unjustly. Qingsong Taoist sighed. Whether it was Muyu or Gu Yitian, their strength had deeply impressed Qingsong Taoist. He knew that, with his current cultivation, he was just an ordinary cultivator outside the Moyin mountain range. Qingsong Taoist turned to Boyang Daoren and said with a wry smile, Brother Boyang, you've got a good disciple. You're too kind. Brother Qingsong, you flatter me. Boyang Daoren's face was full of joy. He looked at Gu Yitian with a proud expression. Ever since the Green Pine Taoist entered the nascent soul stage, he could only address the Green Pine Taoist respectfully. But now his disciple had also become a nascent soul supremacy and defeated the unreachable Green Pine Taoist. As a result, his status as a master naturally rose as well. Although he was saying polite words, he was very proud in his heart. How could he have thought that he would be on equal footing with Qingsong Taoist one day? Lord Boyang, please spare my life. I deserve to die. I deserve to die. The people of Qiantian school who saw that Boyang Daoren was still alive looked as if they had seen a ghost. They had all done disgraceful things to Boyang Daoren and even helped outsiders frame Boyang Daoren. Now, the cultivation of Boyang Daoren's disciple was even higher than that of the mighty Qingsong Taoist. They were so scared that their faces turned ashen. They knelt down and begged for mercy like dirty slugs. Gu Yitian didn't kill them because Boyang Daoren didn't allow him to kill people at will. Some small characters couldn't be seen in public. Killing them would only dirty his hands. Catch up with your master. I'll wait for you tomorrow. Muyu looked at Gu Yitian. Gu Yitian had been wandering outside for a long time. Naturally, he had a lot to say to his master. Just like Muyu, he also had a lot of questions to ask his master. If the two of them wanted to have a real duel, they should let their hearts have no more worries. Muyu had obtained something that could help his master recover his cultivation. Coupled with the existence of the immortal confining prison, nothing would happen to his master. Therefore, he had nothing to worry about. The Qiantian school held a big banquet. With everyone's unanimous approval, Boyang Daoren, who didn't have a high cultivation, sat at the head of the table. Mu Yu and Gui Tian were next. Next were the Qingsong Taoist, Bai Liang, and Old Sun, who had the lowest cultivation. Then, Hong Yin and Hao Jun, who had gotten the news from somewhere, rushed over. Hong Yin and Hao Jun, who had been quarreling with each other, had gotten married and had a son. People were in high spirits. The atmosphere of the Qiantian school changed from austere to jubilant. Xiao Shui even bought all the meat at the banquet. Hao Shuier also came over. She still looked like a love-struck little girl. During the banquet, she kept staring at Gui Tian. Unfortunately, Gui Tian was a blockhead and didn't understand Hao Shuier's feelings. The team from Mount Fu Long gathered again. It was just that Cheng Yin was missing. Tomorrow, let's have a good fight. Chapter 264. A light breeze blew, and the fallen leaves fluttered in the wind, blowing past their clothes. One of them was valiant and heroic, like a free and unfettered wanderer. He was relaxed and carefree, and the shadow in his hand bloomed with green light like a clear spring. The other was proud and cold, with a determined expression. His broadsword was as black as ink, suffused with a cold, murderous aura. The Qiantian school was very solemn this morning. Two top swordsmen of the Maoyun mountain range stood here, about to end the unfinished duel. In the Qingsong school's sect competition, the Falling Dust sect and the Qiantian school were ranked first and second from the bottom respectively. Everyone thought that these two sects were a joke. However, these two sects that were looked down upon by others had actually produced two stunning dark horses. Mu Yu of the Falling Dust sect defeated Xiao Hu of the Qingsong school, while Gui Tian of the Qiantian school went straight ahead and was invincible. Unfortunately, when the two dark horses fought against each other, Mu Yu chose to lose due to special reasons. This also became a pity between the two dark horses. No one would have thought that after a few years, the two dark horses from the laughable sects would be able to trample the Maoyun mountain range under their feet. Even the high and mighty Qingsong Taoist was no match for them. Today was the time for the two dark horses to fairly determine the winner. A cold light streaked across the void, and sword energy filled the sky. It was like the surging Milky Way, endlessly growing and multiplying. However, the broadsword only had the simplest move. When the sword struck out, it transformed into thousands of illusions. It was like a sea-stabilizing needle in the surging waves, majestic and solid. The two figures crossed each other in the air, drowning in the sword light that filled the sky. Majestic auras shot out in all directions, and the air became scorching hot. Waves of energy swept out, leaving shocking marks on the ground. Falling dragon roaring to the sky. The fifth move of the Falling Dust sword technique, Falling Dragon roaring to the sky, transformed into a tangible form and was both illusory and real. The five flying swords carried Mu Yu and soared into the sky. Under the guidance of the flying swords, the spiritual energy around his body turned into five huge green dragons. The gigantic dragon coiled around the shadow sword. It had a majestic dragon head, curvy dragon scales, and a nimble dragon tail. It let out a long roar towards the sky. The dragon's might was vast and mighty, as if it wanted to devour everything in the world. No one dared to act rashly. The broadsword was as fast as lightning, leaving a thin crack in the air. It shattered the void and slashed down with the force of 1,000 caddies. Black light burst out and collided with the giant dragon. Boom! The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The original infant stage's all-out battle turned the surroundings into a mess. Smoke and dust filled the air, and it was difficult to tell who was the winner. The giant dragon dispersed, but the broadsword was still there, and the shadow was still there. The two of them had already switched positions and were looking at each other indifferently. The onlookers, on the other hand, were overwhelmed with emotions. They were deeply shocked by the auras of these two. When did the two of them become so powerful? Bai Liang sighed inwardly. He was originally the leader of the younger generation in the Moyun mountain range. Unfortunately, there was always someone better. The two dark horses had already surpassed him. Now, even if he was the head of the Qingsong school and could summon the wind and rain, he was still nothing in front of these two people. Gu Tian's sword is steady and powerful. It's simple yet domineering. He relied on the purest brute force to exert the sword power to the extreme. Physical cultivators are indeed terrifying. Qingsong Taoist nodded slightly. He had already experienced the most primitive power, which made him unable to fight back at all. In yesterday's battle, he admitted defeat wholeheartedly. Mu Yu's sword is free and natural. It's as if it's one. The sword power is profound, and it negates Tian Er's great strength. I've said before that the Luo Chun sect's sword technique is unfathomable. It's really rare in the world. Even Tian can't take advantage of it. Boyong Daoren stroked his beard and praised. The people present did not know what kind of fortuitous encounters these two dark horses had encountered in the past few years. However, it was obvious to all that their cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. Their cultivation was already so terrifying at such a young age. Their future was limitless. You really didn't disappoint me. Gu Tian stared at the shadow in Mu Yu's hand and said softly. Back in the competition at the Qingsong school, he knew that Mu Yu would not be defeated so easily. He was a dignified swordsman who pursued an open and above-board competition. With his character, he would rather die in the hands of others than take advantage of others. In the past, he had never had the chance to fight with Mu Yu. It had become a barrier in his heart. Mu Yu looked at the broadsword in Gu Tian's hand. His heart was filled with doubts. Your sword reminds me of someone. That person's sword technique has reached the acme of perfection. However, his sword moves are very simple. Who is that person you're talking about? Gu Tian asked. The nameless swordsman. Mu Yu vaguely remembered the competition between the nameless swordsman and the genius swordsman of the sword-cleansing valley, Yuan Jian. The nameless swordsman's sword reached the sky. He used only one move to kill the genius of the sword-cleansing valley. Gu Tian's expression changed slightly. After a while, he said, Senior Nameless saved my life and gave me pointers on sword technique. My sword technique did come from his guidance. Mu Yu suddenly understood. No wonder Gu Tian's sword technique had become so superb in the past few years. It turned out that he had been taught by the nameless swordsman. Before Po Jian left, he had instilled a sword intent into Mu Yu's body. That sword intent had helped him several times. So, the nameless swordsman is your master? Gu Tian shook his head. I don't want to take him as my master, and he doesn't want to take me as his disciple. We just met by chance. He just gave me a chance. Mu Yu nodded. He suddenly understood and focused his attention on the sword technique again. Feng Haochen had once told him that the great Tao was simple. Thousands of sword techniques could not compare to the power of one sword. The ninth move of the Luo Chun sword technique was called 9-9 to 1. 9 swords into 1, and 1 sword into 9. In the battle with Gue Xianyue, Feng Haochen had used his golden core cultivation to combine 9 swords into 1 to shatter Gue Xuanyue's body. The power of the Luo Chun sword technique was self-evident. But now, Mu Yu could only transform 5 flying swords. He was still far from Feng Haochen's sword intent. Therefore, he had been unable to unleash the power of the 9th move of the Luo Chun sword technique. However, what made Mu Yu feel strange was that whether it was the nameless swordsman or Gu Tian, their simple sword aura was so similar to the Luo Chun sword technique. However, the Luo Chun sword technique was more exquisite and powerful. Their sword techniques were simpler. It was as if they only took one ladle out of thousands of weak water. But when this ladle was unleashed to the extreme, it was already extremely terrifying. The Luo Chun sword technique's original name was Heaven Sword 9 Guides. It was recognized as the number 1 sword technique in the cultivation world. Unfortunately, Mu Yu had only scratched the surface. You only use 1 sword. I also have 1 sword. Let's decide the winner with 1 sword. How about it? As the disciple of Sword Shadow Qin Feng, Mu Yu had the strongest sword aura. Yet he could not unleash the full power of Heaven Sword Nine Guides. This was a disgrace to the name of Heaven Sword Nine Guides. His heart was filled with pride. Gu Tian had used the simplest sword technique to defeat him. It was time for him to clear the name of Heaven Sword Nine Guides. He would not use the sword intent of this broken sword in the following battle. That would be too laughable. One sword to decide the winner. Good. Gu Tian's eyes lit up. Muyu had 9 nimble sword techniques. He was not confident that he could defeat him. Both of them used swords. Deciding the winner with one sword was naturally the fairest battle. Gu Tian raised his heavy broadsword and pointed it at Muyu. The sword hummed softly and emitted a black light. His aura continued to climb. His sword was the same as his personality. It was cold and arrogant. It was like a piece of cold iron on a lonely mountain peak. It was cold and murderous. No one dared to underestimate its edge. Muyu's shadow split into 5. Each shadow performed the Heaven Sword Nine Guides. They grew and multiplied endlessly. Muyu's footsteps flickered as 5 human silhouettes appeared. Each of the silhouettes controlled the 5 sword silhouettes. The sword silhouettes weaved and weaved, restraining each other, but also separating from each other. The shadow swords became faster and faster. They gradually condensed into a single point. At the same time, Muyu's eyes lit up. The 5 shadow swords merged into one. A terrifying aura exploded with the sword as the center. Man and sword became one. The 2 of them stabbed forward at the same time. The speed of their swords was so slow that everyone present could clearly see their movements. Everyone could even think of a way to break in an instant. But every time a solution formed in the minds of these people, they would be shocked to find that the swords of these 2 people had already changed. The simplest sword was ever-changing, and they couldn't find any loopholes at all. If they wanted to break it, they would have to be even more domineering than the first sword. Boom! Sword auras shot out in all directions. The shadow swords and broadswords collided. Tiny cracks appeared in the surrounding void. The cracks disappeared in an instant. The 2 swords exploded with shocking auras. They confronted each other in the air for a long time. The murderous aura and the freehand style eroded each other. They wanted to outdo each other. However, neither of them was willing to give in. The sword auras had already turned the surroundings into thousands of ravines. Then, the 2 of them retreated and slowly put their swords away. Muyu looked at Gu Tian. Gu Tian also looked at him. Sparks flew from their gazes. Their battle-intense sword. They were tit for tat. "You are very strong," Muyu said. "So are you," Gu Tian replied. "Kacha." The sound of cracking was clearly heard by everyone. The broadsword in Gu Tian's hand had already cracked. Muyu's sword aura had already invaded Gu Tian's broadsword. Gu Tian's body felt numb. It took a long time for him to force out Muyu's sword aura. "If you had a good sword, you might not have lost," Muyu said lightly. Muyu won. His sword aura was better. As the most powerful sword technique in the cultivation world, the 9 Guides of the Heavenly Sword lived up to its reputation. It was like the most primitive sword technique. It was simple but sharp and unstoppable. Although Gu Tian's sword had a courageous momentum, it still lacked a simple and deep sword will compare to the 9 Guides of the Heavenly Sword. He lost to the 9 Guides of the Heavenly Sword. Gu Tian shook his head. Winning or losing is never a matter of whether the sword is good or bad. If a person has a sword in his heart, the sword in his hand is a good sword. I accept my loss wholeheartedly. Just like the nameless swordsman, Gu Tian also believed in his broadsword. It was a simple iron sword, but in his hand, it was a close friend. When he believed in his friend, even the simplest sword would become extraordinary. Just as Gu Tian said, he didn't lose because of the quality of his sword. He lost because of his understanding of the sword technique. The result of the belated competition was finally revealed. However, their victory was only temporary. The future was still far away. People who use swords wouldn't admit defeat so easily. Senior Nameless will kill the person who left a gap in his iron sword. So will I. Gu Tian carried his sword on his back. He glanced at Muyu and walked toward Boyang Daoren. Chapter 265. Gui Tian left the Qiantian school with Boyang Daoren. Boyang Daoren didn't want to care about the Qiantian school anymore. He would rather be an ordinary person. However, Gui Tian wouldn't. He still had a long way to go. He said that after accompanying Boyang Daoren for a while, he would leave the Moyun mountain range. His path was not here. Muyu returned to the Qingsong school. Kong Kong and Miao Miao had grown tall, but their mischievous characters hadn't changed. The two of them had already started cultivating. After leaving the Moyun mountain range, Muyu found out that people outside the Moyun mountain range started cultivating when they were very young. They didn't have to wait until they were 12 years old to start cultivating. When he was in the Moyun mountain range, because the cultivation conditions here were backward, the school's spirit testing stone could only measure the cultivation talent of a 12-year-old child. Therefore, the age of cultivation in the Moyun mountain range was 12 years old, which was slower than the outside world. Kong Kong and Miao Miao actually started cultivating 2 years ago. Now, they were only 9 years old, but their cultivation had already reached the first layer of foundation establishment. Their talent was not inferior to Muyu's. You two should behave yourselves in other people's schools. Don't make a mess, Muyu said helplessly. The two restless guys were entrusted by their master to stay in the Qingsong school. The Qingsong Taoist ordered that no one was allowed to neglect them. Therefore, no matter what the two did, no one dared to interfere. Therefore, from time to time, they would make the whole Qingsong school a mess, which was quite troublesome. Recently, Xiao Shuai and them formed a troublesome 2.5-man group. Xiao Shuai was considered half a man. The group committed crimes and caused trouble, and the whole Qingsong school was almost overturned. This 2.5-man group even dared to make fun of the Qingsong Taoist. Every time, the Qingsong Taoist would only be magnanimous and scold them a little. There was nothing he could do. If you all leave, no one will play with us. The students of Qingsong school are too useless. They can't stop our sneak attack at all, Kong Kong said discontentedly. That's right. Teasing them is no challenge at all. It's not like teasing you guys in the past, where I had to go through so much trouble. Miao Miao scratched her head. Finally, the two of them were no longer walking around in just their undergarments. Instead, they were wearing children's clothing that fit their bodies. They were very cute. Muyu couldn't help but chuckle. Thinking back to when he was at Dustfall Mountain, these two had tried their best to harass others while they cultivated, but they had all failed. Everyone knew how to deal with these two fellows. Now, in Qingsong school, they were like two young masters. With the Qingsong Taoist instructions, no one dared to provoke them, so they could only blame their bad luck if they were teased. In addition, their cultivation talent was too high, so everyone could only turn a blind eye to them. Did Master say when he'll be back? Muyu asked. Kong Kong and Miao Miao shook their heads and said dejectedly, Master said that the place he's going to is very dangerous and might take a long time. He doesn't want us to follow him, so we can only follow Elder Sun. Then you two listen to Elder Sun obediently. You can bully anyone, but you're not allowed to tease Elder Sun. Do you understand? Muyu reminded. We don't dare. Elder Sun's old arms and legs aren't even enough for a meal. If something happens, there won't be anyone to sleep with us at night. That would be terrible. You know that Kong Kong is afraid of the dark. Miao Miao made a face at Elder Sun. Elder Sun smiled helplessly. Taking care of two restless children was also a headache. However, it was also a blessing to have two children accompany him in his old age. Elder Sun also took care of them like his own children. Fortunately, although the two of them were mischievous, they knew their limits. Just like how Kong Kong and Miao Miao would tease anyone but Feng Haochen in the past, now that Elder Sun was taking care of them, they wouldn't tease Elder Sun. Bah, you're the younger sister. Why are you afraid of the dark? Kong Kong said unhappily. You're afraid of the dark. You're the one who's afraid of the dark. The two of them started quarreling again. Muyu felt a headache coming on. The two of them were quite interesting. They had climbed cliffs, walked over cliffs, poked a hornet's nest, and bombed toilets. They had done all kinds of mischievous things, but they were actually afraid of the dark. Muyu, are you still going to leave? Elder Sun asked. Muyu nodded. The immortal confining prison hadn't been lifted yet, so he couldn't stay here any longer. Now that he had found the 9 chi soul cleansing flower and the netherworld grass, he wanted to find Deadwood and ask him how to deal with these 2 herbs. At the same time, he wanted to find Ciebulo, since his master went to find this person to stop the demons. Then, as long as Muyu found this person, he should be able to find his master's whereabouts. Muyu stayed at Qingsong School for a few days. Then he bid farewell to the Qingsong Taoist and returned to Flowing Water Village. Village Chief Old Boo was still hale and hearty. He pulled the little wimps along and told stories all day long. Naturally, the story he talked about the most was Muyu's story. At this moment, Muyu's story had already been exaggerated by the village chief in his several versions. It included how Muyu caused havoc in the East Sea, how Muyu skinned and pulled out the dragon's tendons, how Muyu moved the mountain and opened up a path for the villagers, and how Muyu beat the white chicken 3 times to protect the peace in all directions. Today, I'll tell you the story of how Muyu caused havoc in the Immortal Palace. It was said that among the high and mighty immortal masters, there was an immortal emperor who ruled over the entire Immortal Palace. One day, the immortal emperor found that Muyu's appearance was a threat to his position. This was not something he could tolerate. In the beginning, he wanted to recruit Muyu, but he only gave him the position of a small stable boy. Our Muyu's strength was monstrous, so how could he be willing to lower himself to such a small position? Thus, he shouted out, "Kings, generals, ministers, generals, and generals are all equal." The immortal emperor took turns to be the next year. Then, he began to walk on the path of unyielding resistance. Muyu was dumbfounded as he listened to the village chief's eloquent speech. The village chief's ability to bluff once again overturned his worldview. After listening to these stories, Muyu felt that he was not only in the sky, but also standing shoulder to shoulder with the sun. When Muyu appeared in front of village chief Old Boo, the village chief was so excited that he almost jumped up. He quickly and proudly introduced Muyu to all the children. "Big brother Muyu, is what Grandpa Village Chief said true?" All the children stared at Muyu with eyes full of excitement. This should be, maybe, probably, maybe. Muyu found it hard to say. If he admitted it, then it would be a double act between the old and young swindlers. "It's true. Muyu, quickly say it's true. This old man is begging you. Don't tell me you want this old man to kneel down." The village chief begged in a low voice. He winked at Muyu and wanted him to personally confirm the authenticity of these stories. At first, Muyu refused. Later, when he saw the village chief's tearful eyes and his majestic aura was about to sweep the floor in front of the children, he could only shamefully admit these great achievements. Afterwards, his face burned with shame. "I am a good youth with 3 virtues for virtues and 5 beauties. I have always adhered to the principle of doing things with a clear conscience. I didn't expect to fall into the hands of the village chief. Aya, this is nothing. What Grandpa Village Chief told you is just a small matter. Come, let me tell you all about the thrilling life and death adventures that happened in the past few years." Little Shuai jumped out of Muyu's arms and jumped onto the village chief's head. Then he stood on his hind legs and placed one of his forelimbs on his waist while the other kept waving. He passionately told everyone the story of how he massacred Fu Xian Island, became famous in the Danding sect, and became famous in the Second Heaven. Oh right, in Little Shuai's story, the main character was not Muyu, but himself. Let me tell you, at that time, Muyu was entangled by a demon beast and couldn't get away. The situation was very dangerous, and he was about to be swallowed by the demon beast. At the critical moment, I angrily rushed out, turned into a flash of light, and rushed into the demon beast's mouth. I had to sacrifice myself. If I wasn't eaten by the demon beast, then Muyu would be eaten. The 2 of us went through life and death together. How could I bear to see him be eaten by the demon beast? I softly said to Muyu, "Oh, goodbye, my brother. We will meet again in the next life." Muyu, a big man, actually cried. Tears flowed down his face as he roared at the sky, his hair standing on end, and he waved his sword in all directions. But the demon beast cultivation was too high. It swallowed me in one gulp, and endless darkness surged towards me. I forced myself to calm down. Muyu was still fighting the demon beast outside. I couldn't fall. Steely courage emerged from my body. I reached out with my 3-inch divine claw, cut open the demon beast's innards, and plucked its demon spirit. The demon beast crashed to the ground. Muyu thought I was dead, and his tears were like a broken dam. It wasn't until I weakly crawled in front of him that he hugged me in joy and said, "Little Shuai, you are too brave. You are my pride. It is my honor to have you by my side. Love you. Little Shuai, you are too great. Little Shuai, you are the best." Many children began to exclaim and praised little Shuai's courage. They were all subdued by little Shuai's spirit. Muyu shivered, and goosebumps appeared all over his body. When he heard "love you," he was instantly petrified. He felt that the awe-inspiring image he had built in the village chief's story had suddenly collapsed. The village chief made him stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun, and little Shuai made him lie in the latrine. "What do you mean by crying? What do you mean by steely courage? What do you mean by you are my pride? What do you mean by saying goodbye to my brother? Crying here and there, can't you happily fight demons and level up?" Muyu had never realized that Xiao Shuai was also an expert at telling jokes. His ability to steal the sky and change the sun was really amazing. He even suspected that Xiao Shuai had received the teachings of the village chief, the old trickster, and had become a hidden trickster. Compared to little Shuai's story, Muyu still felt that the village chief's 3 beats white chicken spirit was more reliable. At least Muyu still had a brave image, and in little Shuai's story, he became a supporting character who only knew how to cry. "Little Shuai, don't tell stories, eat the drumstick." Muyu took out a drumstick and threw into the distance. Little Shuai's eyes lit up, and his true colors of a foodie were fully revealed. He hurriedly ran towards the drumstick. Finally, the village chief passionately repeated the story of immortal master kneeling to the old village chief. That was called spittle flying everywhere, and his voice was full of emotion. Muyu smiled very happily. The village chief magnified his story only because he missed him. Old people always liked to proudly tell others about their children's various strengths. Even if it was exaggerated or fabricated, it was just a sustenance in their hearts. What Muyu could do was to cooperate with the village chief's simple wish. Muyu left a lot of body-strengthening elixirs for the village chief. Elixirs were usually used by cultivators, but there were also some elixirs that could strengthen one's foundation and strengthen one's vitality. It was also beneficial for mortals to extend their lifespan. He reluctantly left Flowing Water Village. This pure land where he was born and raised was the most beautiful place in his memory. However, if the immortal confinement prison was not lifted, this place would also become a hell on earth. He was not willing to see this happen. Moya Mountain Range, his road began here, and he had to protect this place. Chapter 266. The teleportation was very smooth this time. Although Yamon's teleportation formation could not teleport humans, Muyu did not reject him because of his ability to control wood. Little Shuai was stuffed into the Muling by Muyu. Although it had always been tough, in order to prevent accidents from happening again, Muyu did not let it go through the teleportation formation directly. After a huge tearing force, he landed firmly on the ground. With his first experience, he was clearly more proficient this time. However, the moment Muyu landed, he could clearly feel that something was wrong. There was a thick, pungent smell of blood all around him. Muyu looked around, trying to see where the smell of blood was coming from. Unfortunately, the fog blocked his vision. At this moment, a whoosh sound came from afar. It sounded like something was whistling in the air, or something was flying at high speed. Muyu immediately went into the Muling. The Muling turned into an inconspicuous blade of grass and hid in the fog. "Did you notice anything strange?" A deep voice rang out. Muyu saw 2 Hua Yumeng whose skin had cracked open like lava was about to burst out of their bodies. The last time he came here, he did not see any Yumon. Why would there be Hua Yumengs this time? The 2 Hua Yumengs looked around, as if looking for something. Nothing strange. The other Huiyameng was floating in the air. His body was covered in flames, and he slowly landed on the ground. The flames slowly retracted into his body, and he looked no different from the previous Huiyameng. Strange. I clearly heard the teleportation formation's ripples. I thought someone used our teleportation formation again. Forget it. Let's go. We didn't get anything from this trip. Let's go back and finish off the rest of the humans. One of the Huiyameng licked his lips with his scarlet tongue, as if recalling something. Then, he left with his companion. What do you mean by finishing off the rest of the humans? Muyu's heart trembled. He had been in the second heaven for almost a year. He was not sure what had happened in the third heaven. However, he knew that Yaman had declared war on the human race again and even invaded human cities. Could it be that some humans had been captured by Yaman? Muyu had always harbored a grudge against the people of the three continents because Feng Haochen had given them nearly 100 years of peaceful life, allowing them to live and work in peace. However, this true god who had sacrificed himself for the human race was separated from his family. He couldn't even recognize his own daughter. He was even betrayed by the threefold palace. Even the millions of people in the Moyen Mountain range were going to die. He knew that the ones who should be hated the most were the threefold palace and the cultivators with evil intentions, not the ordinary, innocent mortals. If Yaman attacked the mortals, Muyu wouldn't just stand by and watch. The flames on Huiyumeng's body burned as he flew, creating a series of sounds of friction as he flew through the air. He flew at an extremely fast speed, leaving behind a faint scorching sensation wherever he passed. In order to avoid being discovered, Muyu didn't dare to follow too closely. He could only rely on this scorching aura to follow him. The last time Muyu came here, he didn't discover any traces of Yaman because Lanshi City was just a distance away. Lanshi City was a large city with a large population and was prosperous. If Yaman made any movements, the human race would definitely discover it. However, Lanshi City had been attacked by the Fire Yaman once before. Thousands of people died under the threefold illusionary formation. Muyu still remembered this incident clearly. After that blow, Lanshi City might not be able to recover from it. He didn't know how the situation was now. The thick smell of blood became clearer and clearer. Muyu even discovered traces of blood along the way. These bloodstains had dried up for a long time and were splattered all over the gravel on the road. It was obviously the blood of the human race. It seemed like many people had died here. However, the two Fire Yaman ignored it. They didn't see any human corpses along the way. After flying for about half an hour, they turned into a mountain stream. A river appeared in front of them. It flowed gently, and the water was very clear. There were many lush and verdant trees that reached the sky growing on the riverbank. The branches of these trees were crisscrossed. There was something hanging on the branches that swayed gently with the wind. Muyu's pupils contracted, and he held his breath. He was almost scared stiff by the scene in front of him. There were human corpses hanging on the branches of the trees in front of them. These corpses looked like they had been dead for a long time. They were hanging on the trees and had already dried up. Their bodies were wrinkled as if their blood had been drained. The thick and solid branches pierced through their collarbones and hung them in midair. Many of the leaves on the trees were a strange red color that was bright and glistening. Muyu felt an indescribable anger in his heart. These people were dressed like mortals without any cultivation. However, they were captured by the Yaman and died here. Their faces were distorted as if they had experienced great pain before they died. Many of them had their lifeless eyes wide open. They died with grievances. The Yaman actually massacred the human race like this? Muyu watched as the two Huiyumens flew through the forest as if they didn't see them. They disappeared into a cave on the cliff of the mountain stream. His heart burned with anger. Muyu thought of the old tree chief's words. The old tree chief had said that the Mu Yuman advocated peace and did not like war or killing. However, so many humans had died at the hands of the Mu Yuman. The old tree chief's words were better than a song. However, Muyu continued to walk forward for a while. He discovered that not only were there human corpses hanging on the trees, there were also pale and swollen corpses floating in the river. There were even corpses on the soil by the riverbank. Many of the corpses were buried in the ground, leaving only their heads exposed. This scene made Muyu feel a trace of sorrow. Those were the lives of living people. Muyu clenched his fists. He didn't know why these humans had been captured, but one thing was certain. These people were all mortals without cultivation. They were powerless against the Yumon's murderous hands. He recalled what the two Huayuman had said. It seemed that there were still humans alive. Without another word, he chased after them. Muyu had the Yumon's ability, so his aura didn't seem to attract any attention. Instead, he silently entered the cave where the two Huayuman had disappeared. As soon as he entered the cave, a wave of scorching heat hit him in the face. The temperature also rose abruptly. Muyu raised his guard. He knew that he might have entered the lair of a Huayuman. His ability was to control wood. In the face of fire, he was restrained. If many Huayumans rushed out at this time, he would definitely be in a difficult battle. He might not even be able to escape. The cave wasn't deep. Muyu walked forward for a while before the area in front of him suddenly opened up. This was a huge cave. The ceiling of the cave wasn't very high, but there seemed to be some bubbling sounds coming from below. He carefully poked his head out and looked down. What he saw shocked him. There was a deep abyss below. It was hundreds of meters high, and at the bottom of the abyss was boiling lava. The lava kept bursting out, causing sparks to fly. Some of the sparks flew high, almost reaching the entrance where Muyu was. This place was like the lair of a Huayuman. There were many Huayuman playing in the lava. The lava was like a hot spring to them. They splashed the boiling lava around, letting out low and unpleasant laughter. There were many arched bridges above the lava. These arched bridges were very small and were formed from solidified lava. They must have been built by the Huayuman. Some of the Huayuman sat on the arched bridges, playing around in boredom. With a glance, Muyu saw a huge stone slab that protruded from the rock wall. There were 4 humans on it. The 4 of them were still alive, but their bodies were surrounded by scorching flame cages. Among them, 2 of them had faint spirit energy fluctuations. They seemed to be cultivators. The other 2, one old and one young, didn't have any cultivation. The 2 with cultivation were young men. One of them was wearing yellow clothes. His face was pale, and his aura was weak. He sat on the ground, gasping for breath. The other person in white clothes was lying on the ground. He seemed to have suffered heavy injuries. He was only exhaling and not breathing in. Of the 2 without cultivation, one of them was a middle-aged woodcutter. His eyes were closed, and his face was filled with despair. His chest was dripping with blood, and he seemed to have suffered heavy injuries. The other was a young boy. He looked to be 7 or 8 years old. His eyes were filled with fear as he curled up in the arms of the middle-aged woodcutter, shivering. Go, go, hurry up. If you walk over, we'll let you go. Jia. When the jeers rang out, Muyu realized that other than the 4 of them, there was another human on the small wooden bridge below. This bridge could only allow one to stand on one foot. Below was terrifying lava. One misstep, and they would be consigned to eternal damnation. This was a man with a face full of curly hair. He was shivering in fear as he stood on the arch bridge. His entire body was trembling. He was practically lying on the bridge, but his hands didn't dare to touch the bridge. The bridge was boiling hot, and his shoes were already burnt. Huayumang, who was below, was getting more and more rowdy. He was getting more and more nervous. Suddenly, flames burst out from the bottom of his shoes, scaring him. He screamed as his body tilted, and he fell down. Below the arch bridge was boiling lava. It was swallowing and spitting out tongues of fire. In the blink of an eye, he was drowned. His screams came to an abrupt end the moment he was licked by the tongues of fire. Only a few bubbles were left in the lava. A burst of smoke rose from the splashing lava and quickly dissipated. Muyu closed his eyes. The boiling lava seemed to have ignited the anger in his heart. He couldn't save that mortal in time. He could only watch as he was buried in the sea of fire and became a tool for the fire Yumon's amusement. Even if he wanted to save him, there were so many Yumang here. He couldn't possibly succeed. Why are these little burning men so annoying? Xiao Shui poked his head out. Mu Yu clenched his fists. The Fire Yumon's amusement made him feel nauseous. He had never seen such cruel methods before. It was no wonder that the humans hated the Fire Yumon so much. They were truly deranged. Who else wants to watch the barbecue of the humans? There are only 4 humans left. A Hui Yumeng shouted from the side of the flaming cage. The other Hui Yumeng below started to jeer. All kinds of low cries rose and fell in an endless stream. They liked to watch the humans walk across the boiling bridge. They liked the expressions of despair on the humans' faces. They liked the pleasure of watching the humans being swallowed by the lava even more. To them, torturing the humans was their daily entertainment. It was as if they wanted to vent all their resentment of being trapped in the Mayan mountain range on these mortals. So far, none of the captured humans had walked across the wooden bridge. Then, which one of you 4 wants to go first? Walk across the bridge, and we'll let you go. A Hui Yumeng flew up and laughed at the remaining 4. He then waved his hand, and the flames that were guarding these mortals returned to him. Chapter 267. Father, I'm scared. The little boy clutched the woodcutter's clothes tightly. His watery eyes were filled with fear, and he did not dare to look at Hui Yumeng. Every child had heard of the Yumeng's legend. Their evil had long been deeply rooted in the little boy's heart. Now that he saw the Fire Yumon with his own eyes, the fear in his heart had reached its peak. Little Amo, don't be afraid. Father is here. The woodcutter protected the little boy behind him. He looked at Hui Yumeng fearfully, then looked at the unconscious white-robed cultivator on the ground with concern. Then, he glanced at the yellow-robed immortal master beside him, who had a gloomy expression on his face. Only immortal masters with extraordinary means could defeat Yumon. However, the 2 immortal masters beside them were no match for the Fire Yumon. One of them had even been knocked unconscious. Of the 4 of you, who wants to go first? Kiki, you just have to walk across the single-plank bridge. Once you cross it, I'll let you go. The Hui Yumeng Devil Clan member said darkly again, as if he was sizing up a few toys. Even through his dry and cracked face, one could tell that his expression was very playful. He was thinking about which toy to let go of first. You 2 mortals go first. Mortals' lives are not worth anything. The yellow-robed immortal master beside him pushed the woodcutter. He was a cultivator from the Jindan period, but he did not have any ability to retaliate in front of Hui Yumeng. He knew that with Hui Yumeng's means, it was basically impossible to escape. However, he still had a trace of hope and did not want to die so quickly. Immortal Master, the woodcutter shrank back and sighed in his heart. The yellow-robed man was a high and mighty immortal master, while he was just a weak mortal. Their statuses were completely different. Even if he did not want to, he had no choice. Stop talking nonsense. If you mortals die, you die. If you don't die, you'll become a burden to us. The yellow-robed immortal master said fiercely. Like most cultivators, mortals' lives were not worth anything in their eyes. The woodcutter sighed and shook his head slightly. Everyone said that immortal masters were fighting against the Yumon to protect the human race. However, the master immortal in front of him was using them as a shield in order to survive. This made him feel very helpless. The middle-aged woodcutter lowered his head and said lovingly to the little boy, "Little Amo, wait here. Dad'll be back soon." "Father, where are you going?" "I'll go too. I don't want to leave Dad." The little boy grabbed the middle-aged woodcutter's clothes and said anxiously, "Little Amo, don't be afraid. Master Immortal will protect you." The middle-aged woodcutter glanced at the yellow-robed immortal master. This was the only way he could console him. Ever since he was young, he had told his son that if he met Yumon, he would be safe as long as Master Celestial was around. His son also believed in Master Celestial without a doubt. However, when he met Master Celestial and Yumon, he realized that even Master Celestial was no match for Yumon. Master Celestial had even pushed them to their deaths in order to survive. Shakily, he stood up and walked towards Hui Yumeng with fear in his heart. He had no choice. There were so many people captured. Most of them were mortals without cultivation. Only 2 of them were Master Celestials. However, These usually dignified Master Celestials were no match for Yaman. One of them was even injured and unconscious. Only the other Master Celestial was still threatening him. If he didn't go, then his son would have to go. There were more than 20 mortals captured. Every time, Yaman would make one of them step forward and cross the single plank bridge. Everyone was unwilling. They all hoped that the Master Celestial would be able to kill these Yaman. However, the two Master Celestials they met didn't have any tricks up their sleeves. In order to survive, the yellow-robed immortal master forced everyone to follow Yuming's orders and die. The single plank bridge was extremely hot. Stepping on it was unbearable. How could the mortals cross it? Countless people were buried in the lava below. They became Yuming's tools for ridicule. Under the threats of the Master Celestial and Yaman, the captured mortals were all buried in the lava. The number of people kept decreasing. Now, it was finally their turn. The middle-aged woodcutter didn't want to die. However, there were only 4 people left. He couldn't let his son cross the single plank bridge first. The other Master Celestial was unconscious, and the yellow-robed immortal master was threatening them. There was nothing he could do. Master Celestial, I beg you, if you can escape, please save my son. The woodcutter turned around and begged. Cut the crap. I can't even save myself. Why would I save you? Stop dreaming. The yellow-robed, immortal master spat. His expression was extremely cold. The middle-aged woodcutter was filled with despair. He secretly prayed that another Master Celestial would come and save his son. He looked at his son reluctantly. His eyes were filled with love. He hated himself for not being able to protect his son. Little Mo, take good care of that unconscious Master Celestial. Do you understand? The middle-aged woodcutter instructed. Actually, his words were completely unnecessary. How could a child protect an adult? If nothing unexpected happened, after he died, his son would probably be pushed to his death by this ferocious Master Celestial. I understand, Father. You must come back. The little boy leaned against the wall. He hugged his knees and said anxiously, under the urging of Yaman, the middle-aged woodcutter took one last look at his son. He hoped that his son would be reincarnated into a wealthy family in his next life. He trembled as he walked down the stairs. He came to the other end of the single plank bridge. The middle-aged woodcutter poked his head out and looked down. There were many Yaman moving around in the lava. The lava that could instantly incinerate humans did not affect them at all. He stood in front of the single plank bridge. However, he didn't dare to continue forward. So many people couldn't cross it. How could he? Hurry up. Yaman smiled evilly. A spark landed on the woodcutter's back, burning a large hole in his clothes. The woodcutter cried out in pain. He had no choice but to tremble as he walked forward. He gathered firewood for a living. He wore straw sandals. When the straw sandals came into contact with the scorching single plank bridge, they instantly emitted a burnt smell. He had just taken a second step when the straw sandals burst into flames. The flames burned his soles, causing him to groan in pain. He hurriedly rubbed off his straw sandals, but he immediately regretted it. When his bare feet touched the single plank bridge, his feet were already scorched black. The soles of his feet could no longer hold on. His body tilted, and he fell into the magma. He heard many Yaman laughing maniacally and cheering. He was so helpless. However, at the last moment, his mind was filled with the image of his son, little Mo. When he thought about how his son would follow in his footsteps, his heart was filled with grief. Being swallowed by the boiling lava should only be a matter of an instant. Dying an instant was not a big deal. Death was not scary. Most of the fear of death came from the few seconds before death. It was just scaring oneself. However, was this what death felt like? He did not feel any pain. There was no burning pain. However, he heard Yaman's angry cries. There seemed to be something roaring around him. He only felt something tighten around his waist. His falling momentum had been stopped. Following that, something seemed to bring him up rapidly. He opened his eyes and saw a 17 or 18-year-old young man supporting him with a serious expression. The young man was standing on a beautiful sword. It was like a rainbow. The young man was holding another sword. This sword was extremely strange. It looked like it had been bitten by insects and was in tatters. Immortal Master! You are an immortal master? The woodcutter cried out excitedly. He glanced and saw many Huiyuman soaring into the sky from the scorching lava. Flames covered the sky and covered the earth as they chased after them. Immortal Master, can you save my child? Can you not care about me? Can you just save my child? If he could, he wanted to kneel and beg. He was a father. If he had to choose someone to live, he would definitely choose his child without hesitation. Uncle, don't move. I will go and save him. Muyu could no longer watch the woodcutter fall into the lava and become Huiyuman's nourishment. Even if this was Huiyuman's lair, and there were many of them, he still had to try. He was furious. It was not only because of Huiyuman, but also because of what the yellow-robed immortal master had done. In front of Huiyuman, that fellow had actually threatened other mortals to die first. The shadow clone's sword shone with boundless green light and viciously slashed at a few Huiyuman. The first few Huiyuman that had caught up were struck down and knocked down the other Huiyuman that had flown up below. He used the momentum to rush toward the little boy. A branch appeared from Mu Ling's body and instantly wrapped around the little boy and pulled him over. The woodcutter hurriedly hugged the little boy tightly. Little Amo, it's fine. It's fine. The immortal master has come to save us. The middle-aged woodcutter hugged the little boy in his arms, his body trembling uncontrollably. He was content that his son had returned to his side. Muyu saw the conscious yellow-robed immortal master. That fellow's eyes were filled with the desire to live. It was as if he had seen his savior. He stretched out his hand toward Muyu. My lord, save me. The yellow-robed cultivator shouted anxiously. Muyu's eyes were filled with disgust. This kind of selfish fellow, who treated the lives of mortals like dirt, should not be alive in the first place. More and more Huiyuman roared and pounced over. He could clearly feel the discomfort of Mu Ling's sword. It did not like these flames either. Muyu turned around and wanted to leave. However, the woodcutter said hesitantly, Immortal Master, can you save that unconscious immortal master? He was injured by Huiyuman because he wanted to protect us. He is a good person. No wonder that unconscious cultivator was so badly injured. It turned out that he was protecting these mortals. Muyu did not want to save these two fellows with cultivation. He was very close to the exit. If he only brought the father and son out, there was an 80% to 90% chance that they would be able to escape. Those Huiyuman were still flying upwards. They would not be able to catch up with Muyu. However, the woodcutter's words made him grit his teeth and rush toward the opposite side again. He knew that with this delay, there would be some obstacles if he wanted to escape. However, he had his own principles. He could ignore the selfish yellow-robed cultivator, but if the other unconscious cultivator was really as the woodcutter said, then that person was worth saving. My lord, save me. The yellow-robed immortal master saw Muyu rush over again and immediately shouted in joy. Muyu once again swept up the unconscious cultivator. That person's breathing was weak, and he was on the verge of death. He hesitated for a moment before bringing the yellow-robed man over. Perhaps this fellow was selfish, but he was still a member of the human race. Since he was already here, he might as well give him a ride. Muyu clearly felt a sense of strain while carrying 4 people. He immediately slowed down. He also had to deal with the flames coming from all directions. To him, flames were the thing he hated the most. A few Huiyuman had already pounced over. They were slashed apart by his shadow swords and fell down. However, countless Huiyuman continued to charge forward. He turned and flew towards the exit. Just as he was about to rush out of the cave, flames that filled the sky shot towards him like venomous snakes, causing his body to slow down. When he wanted to continue forward, the cave entrance was blocked by Huiyuman. I didn't think that there would be a fish that escaped the net. He not simple. Huiyuman's body flashed with flames as he glared fiercely at Muyu. Chapter 268. A human actually found his way here. He's courting death. A Huiyuman roared furiously. The moment Muyu attacked, many Huiyuman roared furiously and charged forward, wanting to capture Muyu. This was the territory of the Huiyuman. A human actually dared to come here to save them. He was truly courting death. At this moment, more and more Huiyameng had arrived and surrounded Mu Yu and the others. Mu Yu could not escape, even if he had wings. Mu Yu's expression was very grim. The destruction that the Huiyameng had caused in Mistbreath City had left a deep impression on him. The memory was still fresh in his mind. The sea of flames surged into the sky and raged wildly. It was enough to turn a human city into a pile of rubble. Back then, there had only been a few Huiyameng in Misty Breath City, and that was already enough to overwhelm many cultivators. Now that this was Huiyumeng's lair, countless Huiyameng would probably devour Mu Yu in an instant. Attack! A guy who was taller than the other Huiyameng waved his hand. He seemed to be the leader of these Huiyameng. All the Huiyameng received the order and burst into flames. The scorching flames seemed to be able to melt everything in the world as they swept over. Torrential heat waves engulfed everyone around Mu Yu, causing them to feel uneasy. Stand firm, don't fall. Mu Yu had brought 4 people with him. One of them was still unconscious, so his hands and feet were tied. He could not fight these Huiyameng at all. His shadow sword chi swept out violently, blowing away the fireballs of all sizes. However, more and more flames came one after another. At the same time, an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from the scorching lava below. It was as if a monarch from the depths of hell had come into being. The terrifying voice exploded in everyone's hearts. "Father, I'm scared." The little boy hugged the woodcutter's thigh tightly. "Little Mo, don't be afraid. Lord Immortal Master will protect us." The woodcutter carried the white-robed cultivator on his back, while grabbing the little boy's collar tightly with one hand. However, the roars from underground grew louder and louder. Scorching heat waves rolled over, suffocating them. Then they heard the sound of something jumping out of the lava. The splashing sound of lava splashing filled the entire smelted cave. Mu Yu took a closer look. It was a berserk magma beast. Its body was the size of a small house, and its body was splashing magma from time to time. It looked like a bear, but it had a pair of small wings on its back. These wings flapped slightly, allowing it to fly with its huge body. This giant lava beast had been hiding in the magma all this time. Mu Yu didn't even notice it. He didn't expect it to suddenly jump out at this time. His current situation was very bad. He had 2 mortals by his side, an unconscious fellow, and a cultivator who did not seem to have any combat strength. Unless he could escape from this lava cave, he had no chance of winning in Huiyumeng's home ground. No, there are too many of them. I can't use it. Mu Yu's entire body was drenched in sweat. His sword chi could repel these Huiyameng, but Huiyameng kept coming. He couldn't do anything, not to mention that he had to constantly protect the others from being burned by the flames. The people behind him were in his way. From time to time, he would use his spiritual energy to form a barrier to protect them. He was afraid that Huiyumeng's flames would swallow the woodcutter and his child. The woodcutter saw that Mu Yu was becoming more and more strained. He hesitated for a moment and touched the little boy's head. Then, a determined expression appeared on his face. He said, "Immortal Master, if there's really no other way, let me jump down. I don't want to be a burden to you. I only ask that you protect my child. Let my child live. Is that okay?" "No, I don't want to leave Dad." The little boy hugged the woodcutter tightly again. He sounded like he was about to cry. The woodcutter's eyes were red. He also couldn't bear to part with his child. However, now that they were surrounded by Huiyameng, the rest of them had become a burden to Mu Yu. If they didn't make a sacrifice, none of them would be able to survive. He understood that among the 4 burdens, 2 were lofty, immortal masters, while the other 2 were ordinary mortals. The lives of immortal masters were much more valuable than mortals. If he had to make a sacrifice, it would definitely be him. That's right. That unconscious fellow is also a burden. Let's just throw them all down. Without the 2 of them, we'll definitely be able to get out, said the sharp-skinned man. He didn't even blink when he heard the woodcutter's decision. At a moment of life and death, he still wanted others to die for him. He was truly an ugly person. "Damn it, why don't you scram down?" Little Shuai scolded from Mu Yu's shoulder. This yellow-robed young man had been forcing the woodcutter to cross the single plank bridge from the beginning. Now, He wanted to push the woodcutter and the unconscious white-robed cultivator to their deaths. It was really unreasonable. Even a foodie like him couldn't stand the actions of this yellow-robed young man. Saving such a selfish person was a mistake. The yellow-robed man's face turned ashen after being scolded, but his tone was very arrogant. He quickly said, "Sir, you may not know this, but I'm a disciple of Stargate. My name is Tian Baoshao. If you can save my life, I'll definitely repay you generously in the future." Tian Baoshao was indeed from Stargate. Although his cultivation was only during the Jindan period, he was still a disciple of one of the most powerful 8 gates on the continent. He was about the same age as Muyu. Although he couldn't be compared to these outstanding genius disciples, his talent was still above average. He didn't expect to be kidnapped by Hui Yumeng when he came out of train. "What? You're saying that you're a disciple of Stargate?" Muyu exclaimed. His expression was one of shock. When Tian Baoshao saw Muyu's reaction, he thought that Muyu was shocked by his identity. Instantly, an incomparable sense of superiority appeared on his face. The disciples of the 8 gates were all extremely talented. They were very famous on the 3 continents, and even the other sect had to show them some respect. When Muyu appeared here, he was dressed very crudely. Tian Baoshao thought that he was a rogue cultivator. He thought that as long as he revealed his identity, the other party would try to curry favor with him, even if his cultivation was high. Now, when he saw Muyu's shocked expression, he knew that he had guessed correctly. The identity of a disciple of Stargate was very important on the 3 continents. No matter how talented a country bumpkin like Muyu was, he would still have to be courteous to a disciple of Stargate. "I knew it. You must be some poor trash from somewhere. Why don't you be more courteous when you see me?" Tian Baoshao was secretly pleased with himself. "Wait, are you sure you're a disciple of Stargate?" Muyu raised her eyebrows and asked again. She was afraid that she had misheard and did something wrong. That wouldn't be good. In his eyes, Muyu's reaction was a matter of course. Looking at Muyu's expression, Tian Baoshao was already on cloud 9. As a disciple of Stargate, having a high cultivation level was secondary. What was most important was the identity of the disciple. After revealing his identity as a disciple of Stargate, he was actually able to suppress a nascent soul cultivator. This was really satisfying. He flicked the dust off his clothes and said in a very proud tone, "That's right, I am a disciple of Stargate. I came here on the orders of my sect, but I didn't expect to be attacked by Hui Yumeng. If you could take me out of here, I will report back to my sect. You will be a guest of Stargate in the future, and I can satisfy whatever you want." Tian Boxio thought that Muyu would definitely say, "Don't worry, I will definitely protect you as you leave," in fear and trepidation. Then, he would listen to his suggestion and throw the woodcutter and the white-clothed cultivator down the cliff. After that, he would protect Tian Boxio and leave Hui Yuming's territory safely. Finally, he would ask Tian Boxio if Tian Boxio was hurt or something along the lines of, "Are you hurt?" However, he was wrong, and very wrong. This was because before Mu Yu could do anything, Xiao Shuai had already kicked him out. Damn it, I didn't look at the almanac when I went out. I actually ran into someone from Stargate, and I even wasted time to save you. What a cheap hand. Mu Yu's expression looked as if he had stepped on dog shit. He gave Tian Baoshao a mocking look of disgust, and at the same time, he couldn't help but curse. "You, how dare you? How dare you kick a disciple of Stargate? You!" Tian Baoshao shouted in horror. He couldn't understand why he was suddenly kicked out. He thought that after he announced his identity and promised the other party some benefits, the other party would naturally be flattered and politely take him out in one piece. He didn't expect that what greeted him was an extremely strong little foot from a little beast. "I hate people from Stargate the most right now, and you're still bringing bad luck to me." Mu Yu spat. He recalled the time when Shi Mingwei and Tian Yun framed him in the second heaven. In the end, Tian Yun even managed to escape, which was equivalent to causing him a lot of trouble. Just thinking about it made him feel unhappy. The giant lava beast just happened to fly up from below. When it saw a figure falling down, it opened its mouth without hesitation and spat out flames. instantly burning Tian Baoxiao to ashes. Until his death, Tian Baoxiao still couldn't figure out what he'd done wrong. How could a Stargate disciple with such a deterrent status be dismissed by the other party with a look of disgust? If he had been obedient and didn't say anything, Muyu might have taken him out. Unfortunately, Muyu didn't have a good impression of Stargate, so when Xiao Shuai kicked him, he didn't even bother to lift his eyelids. He had already crippled the young master of Stargate, and a little disciple of Stargate still wanted to show off his superiority in front of him. Where did he get his confidence from? What a strange sense of superiority. Immortal master, you? The woodcutter was shocked. He thought that if one of them had to die, it would undoubtedly be him. He was prepared to die, but the little beast on Muyu's shoulder kicked the arrogant and despotic Stargate disciple without saying anything. Don't worry, I won't kick you. I said I would save him, so I will. That guy from Stargate isn't human. He's a pile of dog shit. Don't you think so? Xiao Shuai wagged his tail and touched the little foot he used to kick the disciple. He then muttered, "Why is it so painful to kick a Stargate disciple? Is their skin too thick? He's not human, that's right. Oh no, I shouldn't talk about Immortal Master, but, Sai, who cares? It's good that he died. If the woodcutter had cultivation, he would have beaten Tian Baoxiao up a long time ago. So many people had been captured by Huiyuman, but Tian Baoxiao didn't think about how to get them out. Instead, he used his status as an immortal master to threaten the mortals and arrange their deaths one by one, making them die first. At that time, the woodcutter and his son were hiding in the corner, so they weren't discovered by Tian Baoxiao, so they didn't die so quickly. Uncle, don't think too much. Some people aren't worth saving. Muyu looked at the lava beast that was getting closer and closer, and his heart became more and more cautious. Huiyuman wasn't as easy to deal with as the other monsters. When he was at the second celestial stage, he could just throw Xiao Shuai as bait if there were any monsters. However, Huiyuman didn't eat Xiao Shuai at all. Besides, he was afraid that Xiao Shuai wouldn't be able to come out after being eaten. It wasn't just the lava beast below. Even the surrounding Huiyuman had surrounded them, and the raging flames had already surrounded them. Muyu thought back to the dream that Huan Ling had arranged for him. At that time, his Muling sword had fully demonstrated the vitality of the phrase, "A wildfire can't burn it away, but it will grow again when the spring breeze blows." That kind of endless vitality spilled out of Mu Ling's sword, and even Luo Shang's flames couldn't burn it away. However, when Mu Ling's sword hummed, Muyu understood that the battered Mu Ling's sword had lost too much of its spirituality and couldn't resist such majestic flames. If it was in the past, it might have been possible, but the current Mu Ling's sword couldn't do it at all. Suddenly, Xiao Shuai slapped his head and shouted, "Xiao Shui, where is she?" Muyu looked around, but Xiao Shui was nowhere to be seen. He really wanted to beat Xiao Shui up. How could he joke at this juncture? Then he thought about it again. If Xiao Shui was here, it would be great. Fire and water were natural enemies, and Xiao Shui might have a way to subdue these Huiyuman, giving him a chance to survive. However, Xiao Shui had already returned to the monster race with White Ape Demon King, leaving him with only the water spirit. The water spirit. Muyu's mind quivered, and he realized that Xiao Shui had given him the water spirit. The water spirit was a supreme, Yuman sacred artifact, just like the Mu Ling. It should be more than enough to deal with these Huiyuman, right? However, when Muyu took out the water spirit, he became discouraged. The water spirit was a good treasure, but the problem was that Muyu couldn't control it at all. Chapter 269. When Xiao Shui had given the water spirit to Muyu, she had forgotten one thing. Muyu had no way of controlling the water spirit. The Yao clan's teleportation formation was not suitable for transporting humans, but Xiao Shui's water spirit had protected her, so she had thought that the water spirit would be able to protect Muyu. However, the water spirit was Water Yuman's sacred artifact, so how could it be directly controlled by Muyu? When the water spirit was in Muyu's hands, it had always been a lifeless ribbon without any special characteristics. Little Shuai had even called it a worthless hemp rope. However, when Muyu took it out, the water spirit drooped down and just happened to touch the Mu Ling sword in his hand. Like a greeting between two old friends, the water spirit suddenly blossomed with a brilliant blue light, as resplendent as a crystal. It shone brightly with the green light of the Mu Ling sword. The water spirit began to dance. One end firmly tied to the Mu Ling sword's hilt, it began to circle the Mu Ling sword in the air. Gradually, the water spirit wrapped itself around the Mu Ling sword, enveloping it completely. The originally battered Mu Ling sword seemed to be draped with a layer of nimble blue gauze, its blade as light as flowing water. Then, a strange feeling was transmitted from the Mu Ling to Mu Yu's heart. He was slightly startled, and his right hand involuntarily grasped the green and blue radiant Mu Ling sword. He already knew what he could do. I've heard the old man say that the water Yumon and Mu Yumon can be combined to unleash an incomparably powerful ability that can perfectly suppress Hui Yumon. This ability is called the Water Wood's Death. Little Shuai said. The old man, he was referring to his Feng Haochen. So that's how it is. Mu Yu suddenly understood. Little Shuai had never thought of this before, and only remembered this ability after meeting Hui Yumon today. Then let's see if these two sacred items can punish these Hui Yumon. Mu Yu looked at the countless Hui Yumon in front of him and instantly slashed out with his Mu Ling sword. It was so natural that it was as if he had done it before. There was no sense of awkwardness. Layers of clear waves appeared along with the sword chi. The nimble waves surged around him merrily, isolating him from all the heat. A cool and refreshing feeling spread throughout his body, calming him down quite a bit. As the waves splashed everywhere, tender shoots emerged from the water droplets. In the blink of an eye, the tender shoots grew into towering trees. The lush branches and leaves transformed into specks of green light. Surrounded by water droplets, countless green specks of light descended towards Hui Yumeng and touched his body. Hui Yumeng had never encountered such a situation before. There was no memory of these strange blue specks of light. Furthermore, they were absolutely confident that they could incinerate anything that touched them, so they did not even try to block them. They could imagine how these inconspicuous specks of light would turn into smoke when they came into contact with their scorching flames. The specks of light did not disappear. Countless blue specks of light landed on Hui Yumeng's body. It was like a dry land that had been exposed to dew for a long time. The flames on Hui Yumeng's body were involuntarily extinguished by the outer layer of water droplets. The green light had already penetrated Hui Yumeng's body. Hui Yumeng, who was charging at the front, stopped. A look of disbelief appeared on his face. He looked at the green light on his body in shock. The water droplets had already extinguished the flames, and the green light covered his entire body. Hui Yumeng's dry and cracked body was originally covered in lava. However, at this moment, the lava had already been replaced by green light. His entire body was filled with a thriving vitality. Kacha! Tender shoots squeezed out of Hui Yumeng's skin and emerged from his body. Every crack was filled with green sprouts of various sizes. The green sprouts bloomed in the blink of an eye and grew rapidly. Countless branches and leaves sprang out from Hui Yumeng's body. The roots that coiled around Hui Yumeng's body suddenly stretched out. Hui Yumeng wanted to scream in fear, but branches also grew out of his mouth. He could not shout at all. Just like a potted plant, Hui Yumeng's body became the base of a leafy plant. It was strange and jagged. Hui Yumeng, who had been alive and kicking, suddenly stopped breathing. However, he did not fall. Instead, he strangely floated in midair. Waterwood's Death. Not a bad name. Mu Yu waved his hand again. Countless rays of green light surged out, once again enveloping the few Hui Yumeng in front of him. When the other Hui Yumeng saw their comrade at the front suddenly become covered in branches and leaves and lose his life, they immediately froze in place. When more Hui Yumeng became potted plants in Mu Yu's hands, they finally reacted. They all roared in anger and retreated. Mu Ling and Xue Ling. How could he have such treasures? The leader of the group, Hui Yumeng, looked at the green and blue sword in Mu Yu's hand in shock. He remembered that these two treasures were Yumon's sacred artifacts. The fusion of water and wood would produce an astonishing power. It was not something that small fries like them could resist. After toying with the human race for so long, it's time to collect some interest. The aura of Mu Yu's Mu Ling's sword did not diminish. The sky was filled with green light, like a storm of blooming pear blossoms, continuously enveloping the Hoi Yumon. Some of the Hoi Yumon were not convinced and wanted to resist. After they stopped, they opened their mouths and spat out monstrous flames towards Mu Yu's green light. They wanted to use their flames to block the green light and prevent it from getting close to them. However, the green light was still unstoppable. It actually penetrated the layers of flames and infected the Hoi Yumon. In the blink of an eye, several more potted plants appeared in the air. The giant lava beast roared and spat out flames again. The flames transformed into various ferocious demonic beasts, biting and tearing at Mu Yu. The Mu Ling sword in Mu Yu's hand quickly transformed into green and blue lights. These lights also transformed into vines of various colors that pounced towards the demonic beasts. Countless demonic beasts collided with the green and blue demonic beasts. The green and blue demonic beasts instantly devoured the demonic beasts, turning them into the purest vitality. The flames of the demonic beasts were replaced by the green and blue light. They actually turned around and attacked the demonic beasts behind them. When Hoi Yuming saw that the giant lava beast flames were no match for the two sacred artifacts, he came to a realization and shouted, "Retreat! Quickly retreat! Run into the magma!" The remaining Hoi Yuming finally despaired. After sensing the death of their companions, they no longer had any thoughts of resistance. They all covered their heads and fled, leaping into the magma. The giant lava beast came with a vengeance, and its fleeing speed was unimaginably fast. Although it only had a pair of laughably small wings, its speed was much faster than the Hoi Yuming. After sending a few Hoi Yuming flying, the giant lava beast was the first to hide in the magma. Plop, plop, plop. The sound of countless Hoi Yuming falling into the magma rang out. All the Hoi Yuming looked as if they had seen a ghost. They roared and ran in all directions. Those that ran a little slower were turned into potted plants by Mu Yu. Those potted plants were still standing firmly in their original spots, not falling. Trying to escape? Not so easy. Mu Yu waved the Mu Ling sword again, and even more light spots chased after the fleeing Hoi Yuming. He successfully caught up with a few more Hoi Yuming. Unfortunately, the rest had disappeared into the magma. When the green light spots came into contact with the magma, they did not react like the Hoi Yuming did. Instead, they were swallowed by the magma. The magma is actually not afraid of my waterwood's death. What a pity. Mu Yu shook his head. However, he was already very satisfied with this result. The Hoi Yuming were chased back into the magma. All that was left were potted plants of various shapes and sizes. Mu Yu did not know what to do with them. Immortal Master, these... The woodcutter's mouth was agape. When countless Hoi Yuming surged over, he thought that he was definitely going to die. Who would have thought that the Immortal Master would rely on a ribbon and a broken sword to beat these arrogant Hoi Yuming into a pulp? It's a piece of cake. I'll deal with as many as come. Mu Yu was all smiles. It was all thanks to this broken piece of wood and the silly ribbon that they were able to escape danger. Otherwise, they would have been doomed today. At this moment, he could not be bothered to chase after the Hoi Yuming. Whether or not he could catch up to them was one thing. However, it would be bad if the leader of the Hoi Yuming brought a bunch of reinforcements over. The five elements reinforced and restrained each other. The combination of water and wood could perfectly restrain fire. However, there would definitely be other things that could restrain water and wood. Mu Yu came all the way here. This mountain stream was not just the territory of the Hoi Yuming. Looking at the trees, the ground, and the corpses in the river, he knew that this mountain stream was definitely the gathering place of the Hoi Yuming. If some Hoi Yuming or Jin Yuming did not fear Mu Yu's waterwood's death, then it would not be fun. He brought a few old, weak, and sick people with him. It was more important for him to leave this place. Mu Yu did not hesitate any longer. He headed straight for the cave entrance. Mu Yu did not bother to clean up the strangely shaped potted plants. He left them there to suppress the Hoyumen. It was a warning to them that they should pay the price for killing so many humans. Muyu brought them out of the cave. The heat in the air instantly disappeared, and they felt much cooler. He rested for a moment. Then, he brought them back the way they came. They left the Yumon's territory and flew in the direction of Lanchi City. A gentle breeze blew past. Muyu saw that the Yumon did not chase after them. Only then did he heave a long sigh of relief. "Oh, that's right. I haven't asked for your names yet." Muyu said, "Immortal Master, my name is Yin Hong. Everyone calls me Old Man Yin. I gather firewood for a living. This is my son, Yin Xiaoma." Old Man Yin hurriedly replied. After escaping death, he was extremely grateful to Muyu. His expression was also very respectful. He was afraid that he would neglect Muyu. "Immortal Master, thank you for saving us." Xiaoma blinked his big eyes and said crisply. Muyu chuckled. He thought of the two little brats, Kong Kong and Meow Meow. He said, "No need to thank me. I just happened to pass by." Xiaoma rolled his eyes and continued to ask, "Big brother Immortal Master, Father told me that the one who can control water and wood is Yumon. Why do you know it too?" Old Man Yin's expression immediately changed. He hurriedly scolded, "Xiaoma, don't talk nonsense. That's Immortal Master's magical power. Sir Immortal Master, children's words carry no harm. Please don't take offense." Old Man Yin was also a sensible person. He was also wondering why Muyu could control water and wood at the same time. However, he did not dare to ask. Moreover, the reason had nothing to do with him. He should be thankful that he could escape from the Huayuming's lair alive. How would he dare to ask? Chapter 270. Aya, what's wrong with that? Anyone who is handsome can control it. For example, me. Look, I can even control you. Xiao Shui wagged his big tail carelessly. The surrounding spiritual energy suddenly surged, lifting Xiao Mo up and gently swaying him. And that's right. What he said makes sense. Muyu held back his laughter. Looking at Mu Ling and Shui Ling in his hands, he thought for a moment and said, "Actually, it's very simple. I don't know how to control wood or water, but I snatched these two treasures from Shui Yameng and Shui Yamen. Together, they are Hui Yuming's nemesis, so this is all thanks to them." Old Man Yin and Xiaoma were suddenly enlightened. They also saw the magic of the water spirit and the wood spirit just now. In addition, they were mortals, so they didn't know as much about the Yuming devil clan as the cultivators, so they didn't doubt it. Xiao Imo said with admiration, "Ah, Brother Immortal, you are so powerful. You actually snatched the treasures from Yuming's hands. These two treasures will definitely be of great use in Brother Immortal's hands. You will be able to get rid of many Yumeng." Muyu nodded. It was already good enough that he was able to fool them. He had to be careful in front of the human race and not expose his abilities. He looked at the white-clothed Immortal Master on Old Man Yan's back and asked, "How did you get caught by Hui Yumeng? Where did this guy come from?" Old Man Yan sighed and said, "We were originally villagers of 8 Grass Village near Lanchi City. I was a woodcutter and made a living by chopping firewood. Our days were very peaceful until half a month ago. The ancestral hall that our village had been worshipping for generations suddenly had some changes. A large amount of unknown things sprayed out from the ground of the ancestral hall. We were very scared at first, so we asked the Immortal Masters of Lanchi City to come and check it out. At this moment, they were still halfway to Lanchi City. Muyu also used up a lot of energy just now, so he found a place to rest. Old Man Yin put the white-clothed man on the ground and helped him get into a relatively comfortable position. Old Man Yin continued, "After asking the Immortal Masters of Lanchi City to come, we realized how bad of a decision it was. Those Immortal Masters attached great importance to it and quickly sent more people to isolate our ancestral hall, preventing others from entering. At first, we thought that something unclean had tainted our ancestral hall, but later, more and more Immortal Masters came to our village. No one knew what their purpose was. We only knew that there were more and more Immortal Masters, and they lived in each of our houses. Soon, there was no room for them. Cultivators living in small villages was not a good thing for mortals, because cultivators looked down on mortals, and mortals were in awe of cultivators. It was difficult for them to get along well. Moreover, once the cultivators were mixed together, it was very easy for conflicts to arise. And then, Muyu asked. He himself was born in Flowing Water Village and stood aloof from worldly affairs. What he hated most was cultivators disturbing the lives of ordinary people. That's not the main point. The main point is that when those immortal masters were talking to each other, they seemed to be fighting over something. A fight between immortal masters was not something we mortals could meddle in. Many villagers were even innocently affected and were killed before they could escape. We were scared to death. Knowing that we couldn't stay in the village anymore, we began to pack up and leave the village. Those immortal masters didn't care about us. It seemed that the treasure in the ancestral hall was extremely precious. Old Man Yin sighed. A treasure that appeared out of nowhere made them, defenseless mortals, have no choice but to leave their hometown. This was a very sad thing. If they weren't afraid of losing their lives, who would be willing to leave their hometown? What kind of thing could make so many immortal masters coveted? Muyu frowned. What kind of thing could appear in the ancestral hall of a small village? Could it be some almighty human's magic weapon, flying sword, or something like that? Old Man Yin shook his head. He also didn't know. Then he continued, just 2 days ago, I was taking Xiaoma to seek refuge with my relatives in Lanxi City. When we were passing through that dense fog, suddenly a lot of Huiyumeng jumped out. We were scared to death. In the past year, the rumor of Yumon's escape caused everyone to panic. Many villages said that people had gone missing. I didn't expect that we would also encounter a Yumon. At that time, this immortal master happened to pass by and wanted to save us. Unfortunately, he was also caught by Huiyumeng and was severely injured. No wonder Old Man Yin still wanted to save this white-clothed cultivator at the critical moment. It turned out that this white-clothed cultivator wanted to save Old Man Yin and the others. Old Man Yin was a very honest person. He didn't know any great principles. He only knew that a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. This white-clothed cultivator and Stargate's Tian Baoshao were completely different people. Most immortal masters were actually kind-hearted. It was just that occasionally there would be a group of arrogant and conceited rats. When we were caught by Huiyumon and brought to the lava cave, we found out that it wasn't just a few of us who were caught. There were many others, including that Stargate's immortal master. Fortunately, you came in time and we were able to escape. Old Man Yin said gratefully. Muyu wasn't surprised that Yumeng appeared in this area. This was because the transfer array after leaving the Moyun mountain range was here. During this year, besides attacking Lanxi City, Yumon also attacked many other cities. However, he didn't start a large-scale war against the human race. Presumably, after being trapped in the Moyun mountain range for so many years, they also needed time to recover. Muyu originally wanted to ask more about the treasures in the Babeo village's ancestral hall. Unfortunately, Old Man Yin couldn't explain it clearly. Muyu didn't ask anymore. He saw that this white-clothed cultivator was severely injured. Therefore, he used his life force to heal him. Perhaps this person knew something. The white-clothed cultivator looked to be in his 30s. His cultivation was only in the Jindan period. It wasn't very high. To be able to save someone with a Jindan period cultivation meant that he was indeed brave. However, Imo Wuji didn't know which sect he came from. With Muyu's help, the white-clothed cultivator quickly woke up. He opened his eyes and struggled to sit up. Immortal Master, be careful. Old Man Yin hurriedly helped the white-clothed cultivator up. The white-clothed cultivator glanced at Old Man Yin and looked around. When he realized that they were already out of Yumon's territory, he was relieved. His gaze fell on Muyu. When he felt the faint pressure from Muyu's body, he immediately understood that this was a nascent soul stage cultivator. That's great. It's great that you're fine. It's all thanks to this immortal master for bringing us out of Yumon's territory. Old Man Yin explained happily. I'm Shi Liang, a rogue cultivator. Thank you for saving us. Shi Liang said gratefully. Seeing that Muyu was so much younger than him, but his cultivation had already stepped into the nascent soul stage. He wondered if this young man was an outstanding disciple from some big sect. It's okay. You're a good person for saving Old Man Yin and the others. I just happened to meet them and brought you out. Muyu said, Fortunately, you're a sensible person. Otherwise, I would have kicked you. Xiao Shui hummed and said, Just now, there was an arrogant and despotic guy who was sent flying by my kick. Master, are you talking about that Stargate's Tian Bao Xiao? Shi Liang asked in surprise. What? Did he also threaten you to die, or something? Muyu felt nauseous when he thought of that Tian Bao Xiao. He had never seen such a disgusting person. Shi Liang shook his head. No, Tian Bao Xiao is a person from Stargate. At this moment, people from Stargate are all gathered at Babeo village, not far from here, to fight for the treasure. Master, are you also here for this treasure? I'm not. But what exactly is the treasure in Babeo village? Muyu asked. Shi Liang seemed to have thought of something. His face revealed endless envy and said, There isn't any treasure in Babeo village. It's said that a spiritual chi appeared under their ancestral hall. Masters should know how precious a spiritual chi is. It's the source of spiritual energy. If you can cultivate near a spiritual chi, your cultivation speed can almost be 10 miles per step. When the spiritual chi's matter came out, many people began to covet it and wanted to take it for themselves. Spiritual chi. Muyu was very surprised. He was already very familiar with the spiritual chi. There is probably no one more familiar with the spiritual chi than him. If it wasn't for the spiritual chi, he would still be trapped in the second heaven. No matter if it was the Pill Cauldron sect or the Demon Clan's teleportation array, they all relied on the spiritual chi as a channel. He didn't expect that a spiritual chi would appear in such an inconspicuous ancestral hall in Babeo village. No wonder so many cultivators were crazy about it. If he could seize a place to cultivate in Babeo village, his cultivation speed would definitely be faster. Now that a spiritual chi had appeared in Babeo village, it was likely that all the major sects in the cultivation world would come to fight for this treasured land. Even Yimon would most likely come to interfere. After all, when Yimon was in the Mayan mountain range, there wasn't much spiritual energy for them to recuperate. In the cultivation world, except for a few extremely senior cultivators, very few people knew that the so-called spiritual chi wasn't the source of spiritual energy. It was a hole in the barrier between the heavens and earth due to the difference in spiritual energy density between the second heaven and third heaven. This was the true appearance of the spiritual chi. Muyu didn't have any thoughts about the spiritual chi. The spiritual chi in Luochen Mountain had already given them extremely good cultivation conditions. He simply didn't care about this spiritual chi. Moreover, it was a place where so many people were rushing like ducks. Even if Muyu went there, it would be useless. The most important thing now was to find his master and help him recover his cultivation. After he sent Old Man Yin and the others to Lanxi City, he planned to leave. He planned to first go to the 50-mile garden in the south to find Qingyin and the others. Back then, Luo Shang had asked Muyu to go to the 50-mile garden in the south to find him. I still don't know Sir's name? Shi Liang asked from behind. Muyu. Muyu slowly left these two words and then disappeared into the horizon. Muyu, Muyu, Muyu. Shi Liang sucked in a breath of cold air. In the past year, following the birth of the Demon King, Muyu's name had spread throughout the entire Third Heaven continent. As a traitor of the human race, he let the White Ape Demon King escape and even killed several young heroes from the Gate of Hell. It could be said that he had become the target of public criticism. Could he be that Muyu? Shi Liang was really confused. In order to help the White Ape Demon King escape, Muyu was forced to stay in the second heaven. If he was that Muyu, then how did he escape from the second heaven? Maybe they have the same name? Shi Liang couldn't help but think. After all, it was rumored that Muyu was a traitor of the human race. He was wicked beyond redemption. How would he come to save them? Chapter 271. Have you heard? A spiritual energy appeared in 8 Grass Village. Oh my God, it's a spiritual energy, Such a precious thing. Let's go and join the fun. Forget about us. That place has long been overcrowded. Many self-cultivators are fighting there. I heard that many people have died. Even the disciples of the 8 gates have appeared there. Now, those who can enter that small village are those with high cultivation, at least in the nascent soul stage. Some self-cultivators in the restaurant were talking about the spiritual energy in 8 grass village. Muyi was also listening to them. He had already left Lanshi City and settled down in a small town to rest. These 2 days, from time to time, he would hear some news about the spiritual energy in 8 grass village. Muyi was not surprised by this. You are too naive. Now, it's not just self-cultivators. This morning, I heard that the demon clan also appeared in 8 grass village. A self-cultivator said mysteriously. What? Didn't the demon clan disappear a long time ago? How dare they come out? Another companion said, in surprise. You're too ignorant. The demon clansmen have been showing up in the cities of the human clan for the past few months. The demon clan is so bold, no one is going to punish them? Punish? 10 months ago, the white ape demon king ran out of the second layer of heaven. At that time, this matter caused an uproar. Once the white ape demon king appeared, the demon clan became 10 times stronger. The white ape demon king deliberately appeared with the demon clan. Who dares to punish a demon king? Even the 8 gates don't dare? Forget it. For the 8 gates, as long as it doesn't affect their own interests, they're too lazy to care about the white ape demon king. I heard that the white ape demon king was released by a disciple of the Pill Cauldron sect called Muyu. If the white ape demon king wants to compete with the humans for the 3-layered continent, then Muyu will be condemned for eternity. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I heard that he is trapped in the second layer of heaven and can't come out. When little Shuai heard these strange remarks, he wanted to stand up and proudly say, Kuhan-san came back long ago, but Muyu covered his mouth tightly. Don't talk too much. Muyu silently ate his meal with a helpless expression. Over the past few days, he could hear such discussions everywhere he went. At this moment, it was no surprise that he had become the target of everyone's curses in the cultivation world. What made him angry and even a little ridiculous was that he heard that the disciples of the Gate of Hell and the Gate of Life and Death were praised by the cultivation world. It was said that they had paid a terrible price to prevent the white ape demon king from being born. Even Gue Xuanyue's death was praised as a great death. Muyu almost spat out a mouthful of blood when he heard this. In order to capture the white ape demon king, Gue Xuanyue had used the 9 formations of possession. The price of the 9 formations of possession was the souls of hundreds and thousands of people. It should have been a matter that would incur the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people. However, the self-cultivators did not see the truth. Instead, they were praising the devil. I saw a human among the 8 grass villages Yao clan. It's a girl. I really don't know how she was bewitched by the Yao clan. Even Mu Yu was bewitched by the demons, let alone a little girl. When Mu Yu heard this, he could no longer remain calm. A human girl from the Yao clan? Wasn't that Xiao Shui? He had allowed the white ape demon king to escape from the second layer of heaven because of Xiao Shui. He didn't want Xiao Shui to be controlled by the power of the Yuman in his body. When they were in the second layer of heaven, the disciples of the Gate of Hell, the Gate of Life and Death, and the other sect had surrounded them. Xiao Shui and the white ape demon king were almost captured. For Xiao Shui's safety, he had no choice but to let the white ape demon king take Xiao Shui away. Xiao Shui had the ability to control water. This was very important. Muyu still had the water Yuman's treasure, the water spirit. A few days ago, the water spirit and Mu Ling had combined to produce an unexpected effect. They had beaten Hui Yumeng to a pulp. It was really unexpected. However, the water spirit was not Muyu's. He should return the water spirit to Xiao Shui so that she could protect herself. Thinking of this, he had to make a trip to the 8-grass village. Muyu had never told Xiao Shui the reason why he helped her, mainly because he didn't have a chance. But now that he had met her, he should make it clear to her. It seems that I have to use the appearance-changing technique again. Muyu was now a wanted criminal in the cultivation world. He should have been locked up in the second layer of heaven. In order not to cause any unnecessary trouble, he had to change his appearance a little. When Muyu stole something from the dead tree used the Silhouette Being organization to track him down. In order to avoid the organization, he deliberately learned the appearance-changing technique, but his technique was not very good. Muyu didn't like the appearance-changing technique very much. Although this technique of using spiritual energy to change one's appearance was very effective, it would make one's face very uncomfortable. The most important thing was that he always couldn't change his appearance into his ideal appearance. With little Shuai's help, he finally disguised himself as a rash young man. Originally, he wanted to protest, but little Shuai said that a rash young man would not attract attention. Thinking about it, little Shuai seemed to be right, so he agreed. Next time, I will disguise myself as a handsome man. Muyu was dissatisfied, and then narcissistically thought that his original appearance was already very beautiful, so he didn't need any plastic surgery. It's easy to sprain your ankle if you are too handsome. Do you know how helpless handsome children are? For example, a handsome species like me always has a lot of pressure. Pressure? What pressure? It was the first time that Muyu heard that being handsome was stressful. I'm handsome, so everyone likes me and wants to play with me. But no one knows that what I really like is delicious food. You won't be able to understand the loneliness of not being understood by others. Little Handsome stretched out his little paw to stroke the white hair on his forehead. He shook his head and sighed softly. Without saying a word, Muyu grabbed Xiao Shuai and directly stuffed it into his pocket. He still didn't understand how Xiao Shuai defined the word handsome. It was not handsome at all. It could barely be called cute. But when other people said that it was cute, it had a disgusted look on its face. Muyu didn't really understand Xiao Shuai's outlook on life. Did it like to eat handsome? Was it always narcissistic to be handsome? After dressing up, he found someone to ask for the direction of 8 Grass Village, and then rushed to 8 Grass Village. At this moment, there were many angry cultivators standing outside 8 Grass Village. They angrily criticized the demon clansmen in the village, but no one dared to go over. The White Ape Demon King's method was very straightforward. As soon as it arrived, it directly threw all the humans out of 8 Grass Village, and then swaggered in with its own demon clansmen. If any blind cultivator dared to go over, they would certainly be beaten up and thrown out. The fact that the White Ape Demon King hadn't killed anyone so far was already considered good-tempered. None of the cultivators present dared to really challenge the White Ape Demon King. In the beginning, the White Ape Demon King could even run out of the Pill Cauldron sect. Thinking about it, the Pill Cauldron sect was an ancient sect with a rich heritage and countless capable people, but unfortunately, they couldn't stop the White Ape Demon King. How could they count on these nascent soul stage, shrimp soldiers, and crab generals? The demon clansmen have gone too far. We must not let them go. That's right. How can the demon clansmen taint our human village? Hurry up and come out. I want you to fight to the death. That's right. Come out if you have the ability. We will now let you see the true strength of our human clan. Many nascent soul stage cultivators were clamoring. None of these people had the ability to stand in front of the crowd, and they only dared to talk back and flaunt their superiority for a moment. However, one thing was certain. Before the ownership of the 8 Grass Village's spiritual energy, I was determined. It belonged to all the cultivators. These people were originally cultivating in the village, but in the end, the White Ape Demon King unceremoniously kicked them out. Really impatient. Hurry up and go find someone who can speak up. You bunch of useless guys. I always feel that the overall level of the human clan has been dragged down by you. 1,000 years ago, the human clan wasn't as weak as you are. If no one comes tomorrow, then this village will belong to me in the future. The White Ape Demon King lazily walked out and stood at the entrance of the village with his hands crossed in front of his chest. He had a rebellious look like a bandit. As soon as he came out, a terrifying aura instantly shrouded everyone, making everyone almost scared out of their wits. They trembled with fear and couldn't say a word. Those cultivators who were waving their fists and saying that they would fight to the death with the demon clansmen were scared silly for a moment. They didn't even dare to breathe. You wait. We will go find someone to fight to the death with you. After a long time, someone finally spoke up. Just a moment ago, he had said that he would personally go up, but when he saw the white ape demon king's imposing manner, he immediately changed his mind. Yes, don't be so proud. Our human clan's powerful figure hasn't arrived yet. Many people echoed, but their voices were like the buzzing of mosquitoes, completely lacking the previous enthusiasm. Now, the white ape demon king, who had recovered his cultivation, stood there like a mountain pressing down on everyone's heart. His words weighed 10,000 pounds, and no one could bear it. Behind the white ape demon king stood a dozen or so young demon clansmen. These demon clansmen all had an extraordinary aura. The weakest of them was at the nascent soul stage, while a few of them were at the out-of-body stage. Such outstanding young people were extremely rare in the human clan. Look, Sister Xiao Shui is over there. Little Shui secretly poked his head out. Then, as if he had thought of something, his eyes were filled with endless fantasy. He said, Sister Xiao Shui gave me the deepest impression that day when she jumped off the cliff. We watched her from below. Aya, if only she had worn a skirt that day. Right? That was indeed a pity. Bah, you little brat, what nonsense are you thinking? Muyu knocked on little Shuai's head. Then, he looked at the familiar figure in the distance and straightened his collar very seriously. Xiao Shui was wearing a white robe today, which was particularly eye-catching among the demon clansmen. Her aura was as clear as ice and as pure as jade, without the wildness of the demon clansmen. She was like a lotus flower emerging from the mud, causing people to admire her. Yang Kai wanted to go over and talk to Xiao Shui, but he restrained himself. Now that the demon clan had appeared here, the other sects must have heard the news and rushed over to negotiate with the demon clan. Muyu's current identity was very sensitive. She had already been accused of being an accomplice of the demon clan by the self-cultivators. If she ran over at this time, she would really be accused of being an accomplice of the demon clan and would never be able to clear her name. Yang Kai intended to observe the situation first before finding an opportunity to talk to Xiao Shui alone and return Shui Ling to her. As soon as the white ape demon king returned, he led the demon clansmen out in public. In fact, anyone with a discerning eye would know that the reason the demon clansmen had appeared here was not simply to snatch the world energy core. Chapter 272. In the 8-grass village, Xiao Shui sat on the roof of her straw hut and stared blankly at the moon in the sky. The moon was very round, and it looked like a young man was looking at her. Girl, what are you thinking about? A handsome demon youth sat down beside Xiao Shui with a warm smile. He looked at Xiao Shui with doting eyes. Big brother Xingyun, why aren't you cultivating? Xiao Shui came back to her senses and smiled. This demon was called Long Xingyun, and he had a very high status in the demon race. The most honorable lineage of the Yao clan was the Azure Dragon Demon King, who was the clan leader. The Azure Dragon Demon King and the White Ape Demon King were the only two remaining demon kings among the 10 demon kings of the Yao clan. Long Xingyun was intelligent and had an extraordinary appearance. He was recognized as the #1 demon among the younger generation of the demon race. He came out with White Ape this time to train. Long Xingyun smiled. Then why isn't Xiao Shui cultivating? Are you still thinking about that person? Xiao Shui sighed. We were able to escape the second heaven because of him. I wonder how he is now. Although we owe him a great favor, he is still a human. Xiao Shui, you should be prepared. If there is a conflict between the demon race and the human race, he will choose to help the human race and not us. Long Xingyun was very concerned about Muyu. He had liked Xiao Shui for a long time, but Xiao Shui had always been lukewarm toward him and only treated him as an older brother. He didn't expect Xiao Shui to be concerned about a human after coming back from the second heaven. How could he accept that? Kid, what are you talking about? Xiao Shui is also a human. Isn't she on our side? You've always looked down on humans. Are you looking down on Xiao Shui as well? White Ape appeared behind them and asked, "Grandpa Ape, of course I didn't mean that. Xiao Shui is much stronger than those humans. How can they compare to her?" Long Xingyun said awkwardly. Although he was the grandson of the Azure Dragon, he didn't dare to be rash in front of the White Ape Demon King. "If you ask me, that little bastard of the human race is much stronger than you young little demons. Never underestimate a human's potential. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. Why do you think our monster race was suppressed by the humans for so many years?" The White Ape Monster King spoke very straightforwardly. This was related to his character. Xingyun snorted in his heart, but he did not dare to refute. Xiao Shui looked at the moon, and Mu Yu's figure lingered in her mind for a long time. Grandpa Azure Dragon is already thinking of a way to restart the teleportation array. You have to hold on. The teleportation array of the Yao clan was somewhat similar to the teleportation array of the human clan. Once the teleportation array was closed and reactivated, it would take several years for it to recover. However, the teleportation array of the Yao clan was not as meticulous as that of the human clan. Therefore, as long as they found a way to replenish the spiritual energy lost from the teleportation array, they would be able to reactivate it. When a monster race cultivator used a teleportation array, the tearing force was quite strong, but monster race cultivators were naturally born with thick skin and flesh, so they were able to withstand it. If a human used the monster race's teleportation array, it was very likely that they would end up lying on the ground. This was also the reason why Xiao Shui had handed Shui Ling over to Mu Yu. "All of you, cheer up. We didn't appear in front of the human clan with great fanfare just to snatch the spiritual chi. If we don't show our strength to the human clan, they will really think that we monster race are easy to bully." White Ape Monster King's eyes flashed. A night had already passed. Mu Yu, like many other cultivators, was waiting outside Eight Grass Village. While others were waiting for reinforcements to come and teach the monster race cultivators a lesson, Mu Yu was looking for an opportunity to meet with Xiao Shui. He originally wanted to blend in with the plants and sneak into Eight Grass Village, but thinking that White Ape Monster King had already recovered his cultivation and was a 1,000-year-old monster, it would be troublesome if he was discovered. "White Ape Monster King, why don't you come out and meet me?" Just as everyone was waiting anxiously, a loud and clear voice spread throughout the entire Eight Grass Village. This voice was full of energy and was long and drawn out, like an ancient bell, causing everyone's mind to tremble. Many cultivators revealed happy expressions. Finally, there was an expert of the human clan who could speak. Strange fluctuations appeared in the sky above Eight Grass Village, like ripples on water, and three figures slowly emerged. Standing in the middle was an old man dressed in cotton clothes. His hair and beard fluttered in the wind, giving him an immortal aura. His complexion was ruddy, and the aura around his body was faintly circulating, causing people's hearts to palpitate. On his right was a barefoot woman who was extremely beautiful. If it weren't for the fact that there were no pupils in her strange eyes, she would definitely make people fall in love with her. There was also a man dressed in the Pill Cauldron Sect's uniform with Tao patterns on his body. He leaned on a walking stick with his eyes slightly closed, looking very casual. As soon as these three people appeared, many cultivators exclaimed in surprise. Everyone whispered and began to discuss the origins of these three people. These three people did indeed have great backgrounds. The old man in the middle was called Tsang Wanzi, a reclusive senior of the Xianling sect. His seniority was extremely high, and his cultivation was unfathomable. The woman came from the Red Dust sect. She looked young and beautiful, but her actual age was frighteningly old. People called her Piao Miao Fairy. Her black hair hung down to her waist, and she wore a purple gauze dress. She was well endowed and was barefoot with a golden anklet on her ankle. The last person was an old senior of the Pill Cauldron sect, Yuan Hua Daoist. Yuan Hua Daoist was the martial uncle of the current sect master of the Pill Cauldron sect. He was of the same generation as the old man guarding the pavilion that Mu Yu knew. It was said that the quality of the elixirs he refined was at least 1 grade higher. This meant that the original 5th-grade elixir would be equivalent to a 6th-grade elixir after being refined by him. This kind of heaven-defying alchemy ability was really amazing. Yuan Hua Taoist naturally had his reasons for coming here. In the past, the White Ape Demon King had escaped from the Pill Cauldron sect and caused chaos in the sect. So many skilled seniors of the Pill Cauldron sect had attacked together, but they still couldn't catch the White Ape Demon King. Therefore, the cultivation world was quite critical of the Pill Cauldron sect. He happened to be nearby today and heard that the White Ape Demon King was provoking the human race here. Therefore, he felt that it was his duty to come here and negotiate with the White Ape Demon King. However, this also showed how powerful the White Ape Demon King was. At that time, he was trapped for 1,000 years and was extremely weak. He was also attacked by the 9 formations of the Gate of Hell and almost lost his life. But even so, the entire Pill Cauldron sect couldn't do anything to him once he fused with his Knighten. Of course, there was also the factor that the alchemists were not good at fighting. However, the Pill Cauldron sect was a big sect after all. Even if they were not good at fighting, their mountain gate was not a place that ordinary people could enter and leave at will. But the White Ape Demon King was unstoppable. After killing the juniors of the Gate of Hell and the Gate of Life and Death, he left a very deep impression on everyone. Now, nearly a year later, he swaggered in the sight of the human race. Looking at his restrained and arrogant appearance, it was likely that his cultivation had almost recovered. "Can the 3 of you talk?" The White Ape Demon King lazily stepped out and appeared in the sky above 8 Grass Village. His expression was very leisurely. Even if the 3 people made it clear that they were here to denounce him, he was not afraid. If he was afraid, he would not be the White Ape Demon King. As soon as the White Ape Demon King appeared, the 3 people led by Tsong Wanzi frowned. The White Ape Demon King stood there, and even the 3 of them felt a sense of pressure. They knew that if they really fought, the White Ape Demon King's strength would not be inferior at all. The 3 of them would even be suppressed. "White Ape Demon King, what is the meaning of you invading our human race's village?" Song Wanzi asked in a deep voice. The White Ape Demon King's reappearance was irreversible unless there was an even more powerful human almighty to reseal the Demon King. However, the person who sealed the Demon King thousands of years ago had disappeared in the vast river of history. The human race was not an immortal existence like the Demon King. Many powerful almighty beings could not withstand the erosion of time. The spiritual Chi is a treasure of heaven and earth. Treasures belong to those who are capable. Why can't we demon race have it? The White Ape Demon King asked arrogantly. This is our human race's territory. Even if there are treasures, they should belong to us humans. What does it have to do with you demon race? Song Wanzi rebuked. The White Ape Demon King was not angry. He yawned and said, "You say this is your territory, but I remember that this area belonged to us demon race thousands of years ago. Isn't that right? 1,000 years ago, this area did belong to the demon race. However, the demon race suffered heavy losses during the war between the human race and the demon race. They were forced to hide, and this area became the human race's territory. The truce agreement between the human race and the demon race was clearly written. If you give up this place, it will belong to us. Do you want to break the truce agreement?" Song Wanzi said, "It's just an agreement. What does it have to do with me? I didn't sign it. Besides, 1,000 years have passed, and the person who signed the agreement is nowhere to be found. How do I know if it's nonsense?" The White Ape Demon King said rudely. Many people were furious when they heard about the White Ape Demon King. This White Ape Demon King was so shameless and untrustworthy. "So you demon race are going to go back on your word and start a war with us humans again?" Song Wanzi said angrily. "We demon race are not the ones going back on our word. You humans agreed to ally with us in the matter of Yamon. In return, you humans would give us demon race a piece of land. We demon race have always been on your side in the matter of fighting against Yamon. 1,000 years ago, when Yuman was temporarily defeated, you demons turned against us. You demons burned the bridge after crossing the river, and you still have a nerve to say that we went back on our word? Now that Yuman is preparing to make a comeback, we want to join in as well. I want to see if you demons will still make any agreements with us." The White Ape Demon King sneered. Many people did not know what happened 1,000 years ago, but the White Ape Demon King was telling the truth. Yuman had been very tyrannical since ancient times. Although the demon race and humans had conflicts, they were on the same side as Yuman. 1,000 years ago, when humans and demon race worked together to defeat Yuman, the humans and demon race began to fight again. It was also at that time that the demon race was suppressed by the humans until they could not recover. Yuman kept coming back and being defeated for 1,000 years. It was not until 100 years ago that he was completely trapped by Sword Shadow and Dust Wind in the Mayan Mountains. Now, however, he had escaped again. Unfortunately, the demon race was starting to get restless. The White Ape Demon King's words were a warning to the humans. If they did not recognize the demon race's status, then the demon race would definitely stab the humans in the back. The humans might be able to fight Yuman alone, but fighting both Yuman and the demon race at the same time was uncertain. The White Ape Demon King's threat made many people's faces change. Everyone was actually thinking about this problem. Without the demon race, the humans could defeat Yuman. However, if the demon race and Yuman worked together, the humans would not have enough energy to fight both races at the same time. Then what do you want? Songwanzi asked. If you are a sensible person, then you should know that the Threefold Palace has already tacitly acknowledged the existence of us demon race. However, if you don't want us demon race to cause trouble for you, then you have to show some sincerity. For example, starting with this village. The White Ape Demon King revealed a malicious smile. The Threefold Palace was the most mysterious existence in the cultivation world. When it came to fighting Yuman, everyone had to listen to their orders. When the White Ape Demon King appeared, they did not express their stance, which explained everything. Now, Yuman's traces had appeared in many places on the Threefold Continent, not only near Mist Breath City, but also in many other places. This had already caused the humans a lot of trouble. The humans and Yuman were bound to fight, so naturally, they could not let the demon race stab them in the back. You want to monopolize the spirit chi? Songwanzi's tone was very unfriendly. The White Ape Demon King shook his head and said leisurely, "I'm not as greedy as you humans. Right now, it's the world of the young. I don't want to make a move as it would be ungentlemanly. How about we use the young people as the stakes? What do you think? How do you plan to use the young people as the stakes?" Songwanzi asked in a deep voice. Chapter 273. Eight Grass Village was originally a peaceful little mountain village where some mortals with no cultivation base lived. They stood aloof from worldly affairs, working from sunrise to sunset. Until the appearance of the spiritual energy eye, the village was no longer peaceful. At this moment, Eight Grass Village was being eyed covetously by two forces. Every human cultivator was looking at White Ape Demon King, waiting for him to continue. It's very simple. Today, I have brought 5 nascent soul stage and 5 out-of-body stage juniors. Why don't you humans find 20 youths, and we will have 20 fair duels. Nascent soul stage against nascent soul stage, out-of-body stage against out-of-body stage. Let's have 20 duels. If we demons win 2 duels, the spiritual energy eye of this village will be given to us demons to cultivate for a month. If we win 20 duels, the village will give us 10 months to cultivate. If we win an odd number of duels, we don't want the extra duel. White Ape Demon King slowly stated his rules. Everyone carefully pondered over the rules proposed by White Ape Demon King and calculated. In fact, White Ape Demon King's rules were beneficial to the human race. There were 20 duels, but the demons only brought 10 youths. This meant that each demon youth would have to fight 2 duels, while the human race could send 20 youths. They had a chance to defeat the demons. Even if the human race lost, they could still use the village for 2 months. This rule was actually White Ape Demon King giving the human race a way out. He would only send 10 demons while the human race would send 20. No matter who won or lost, the human race would have the right to use the village for at least 2 months, guaranteeing the rights of the human race. This was the initiative of the human race. If the human race did not agree, then the demon race would have an excuse to make trouble. After all, the demon race had given the human race enough face. It could be said that this duel was essentially unfair to the demon race. However, White Ape Demon King naturally came prepared. How could the 5 nascent soul stage and 5 out-of-body stage demons he selected be simple goods? He dared to set such a rule to tell the human race that the 10 used behind him had the ability to fight 1 against 2. To some extent, White Ape Demon King intended to let the human race see the strength of the younger generation of the demon race. If the younger generation of the monster race defeated the human race would be wary of the monster race. In the future, if the monster race wanted to raise other conditions, the human race would have to be cautious. How arrogant! Sangwon-zi shouted angrily. In a way, the White Ape Demon King was also provoking the human race. Generally speaking, if the cultivators were of similar strength after the first round of competition, they would have consumed a lot of their spiritual energy. It would be very difficult for them to have any energy left for a second round. However, the White Ape Demon King indicated that the demon race had enough energy for the second round. In other words, the demon race was confident that they could win against the human youth without spending too much energy. Of course, if you think that you humans can't compare to us, the younger generation of the demon clan, then I have nothing to say. However, this village will be mine. White Ape didn't care about the famous Sangwon-zi at all. When he was famous in the 3 continents, Sangwon-zi wasn't even born yet. They had gone too far. All the self-cultivators present were enraged. The demon race actually dared to look down on the human race. How could they swallow this anger? Many people had already begun to denounce the Demon King, but when the Demon King's gaze swept over them, they kept quiet out of fear. What if we don't agree? Sangwon-zi was also furious. The White Ape Demon King's words were provocative and contemptuous of all the self-cultivators. You don't agree? Then I'll take the spiritual energy I by force. What can you do about it? The White Ape Demon King raised his eyebrows, and an aura of disdain spread out without reservation. His tone was extremely arrogant. Want to fight? The White Ape Demon King had now recovered his strength and was ready to fight at any time. He wasn't afraid of these 3 people. Moreover, the human race was the one who started the fight. The human race was the one who tore up the truce agreement. Naturally, the demon race had an excuse to make things difficult for the human race. This was also the reason why the demon race dared to do this. Sangwon-zi's expression was extremely unsightly. How could he not know what the demon race was planning? He was afraid that the demon race was looking for an excuse to recompete with the human race for the 3rd heaven. If they agreed to this request, the human race would lose a lot of face if they lost. If they didn't agree, when the human race and Yu Meng clashed, not only would the demon race not help, but they would also interfere. It would be even more uncomfortable to be attacked from the front and back. Then let's have a fair competition. 10 demon race and 10 human race. This way, we humans won't bully you, Taoist Yuan Hua said slowly. If there were really 20 humans, even if they won, it would be an unfair victory. They were all sensible people and naturally wouldn't let the demon race easily look down on the human race. They couldn't bully the human race with numbers. If the demon race lost, they would say that the human race won by taking turns. Okay, then how about we set the time for today? The White Ape Demon King had long expected that the human race would make such a decision. The rules just now were set purely to despise the human race. Today, the White Ape Demon King was really shameless to the extreme. He specially brought 10 elites, but where would the human race find the so-called talents in such a hurry? The elites of various sects didn't all come here to join in the fun. Many powerful young talents were in their own sections. Even if they came here, it would take some time. How could they come just like that? With so many people here, there must be no lack of young talents, right? The human race is so strong. They should be able to casually pick 10, right? The white ape demon king laughed. Because of the matter of the 8 grass villages' spirit many cultivators rushed here to get a share of the profits. Therefore, at least a few thousand cultivators gathered here. It was indeed possible to find 5 nascent soul stage and 5 out-of-body stage cultivators. What do we do now? Song Wanzi whispered to the others. He couldn't decide on this matter alone. The demon race clearly knows that we can't find 10 people who can represent the human race in such a short time. Taoist Yuan Hua said, "What if we discuss with them and delay the time? When the time comes and we let the truly capable juniors go, the demon race won't be able to win." Piao Miao Fairy's voice was very clear. Apart from those strange eyes, her voice and appearance were absolutely devastatingly beautiful. At that time, I'm afraid he'll play some tricks again. Song Wanzi coldly snorted. That's right. With White Ape's character, if we delay the time, he'll definitely play some other tricks. White Ape may be muscular, but his brain isn't simple at all. Taoist Yuan Hua paused and continued, presumably, a lot of people have come here to see the spirit Chiai's appearance. I saw that a lot of outstanding juniors came here just now. We can still gather 10 people. Then it's decided. Otherwise, if we delay the time, people will say that we're afraid of the demon race. Song Wanzi got the agreement of the others. So he once again said to the white ape demon king in a clear voice, "Good. Then let's at least confirm the contestants. How about the competition start at noon? You demons have waited for so long. Presumably, a few more hours won't make a difference, right?" The white ape demon king pondered for a moment and agreed. Song Wanzi and the other 2 moved lightly and instantly arrived among the cultivators. Many people respectfully opened up a path for them. These 3 people had unreachable statuses in the cultivation world, and their cultivations were also extremely terrifying. Their arrival made everyone fall silent, for fear of leaving a bad impression on them. Song Wanzi looked around. He had come here to preside over the overall situation and had a long way to go. He had to make it clear to everyone. The loud voice once again resounded in the ears of every cultivator. Everyone, since the demon clan wants to compete with the human clan naturally has to keep them company. I wonder who among you is willing to fight on behalf of the human clan, set an example for the human clan, and ask for advice from the younger generation of the demon clan? Me. Count me in. I'm willing to fight for the human race and teach the demon race a lesson. We can't let them look down on us humans. Immediately, there was a burst of self-recommendation from below. Everyone was impassioned and vowed to save face for the human race. The actions of the demon race had already made many people angry. At this moment, they couldn't wait to fight the demon race. Just now, many people were only afraid of the white ape demon king. Since this competition was between the younger generation, they had nothing to worry about. Most importantly, this was a good opportunity to prove themselves. If they could defeat the demon race in the competition, they would definitely be remembered by the world of cultivators and be rewarded by their sections. At that time, it wouldn't be impossible for them to become famous and be praised by the world. Many cultivators puffed out their chests, wanting to be a part of the battle. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Once they defeated the demon race and won glory for the human race, their future was bound to be brilliant. Everyone, please be patient. We must defeat the demon race, but the people who go on stage must guarantee that they will win the competition. So, those of you who are in the 9th layer of the nascent soul stage or the 9th layer of the out-of-body stage, please come forward. Song Wanzi wouldn't casually select a few young people to fight. They had to choose carefully. The competition between the human race and the demon race was of great importance. This was not only a competition about the right to use the spiritual energy but also a competition about the dignity of the human race. The contestants had to be at the nascent soul stage or the out-of-body stage. Therefore, in order to win the competition, the contestants had to be at the 9th heavenly layer of the nascent soul stage or the 9th heavenly layer out-of-body stage. Hearing Song Wanzi's words, The crowd became restless. Everyone no longer volunteered themselves, knowing that this matter had to be in the ninth layer of the nascent soul stage or the out-of-body stage. But the crowd gradually quieted down and found that no one came forward. Who here is in the ninth layer of the nascent soul stage or the out-of-body stage? It's time to win glory for the human race. Song Wanzi frowned, thinking that someone didn't hear him clearly, so he repeated his words. The crowd became restless again, but there was still no one. Find 5 in the ninth layer of the nascent soul stage and 5 in the out-of-body stage? That's a bit difficult. Muyu stood quietly in the middle of the emotional crowd and gently shook his head. Although there were many in the nascent soul stage and out-of-body stage, the young people who had reached the ninth layer were basically cultivating at home to break through to the next level. Why would they come out casually? Muyu, shall we go? Let's go teach the small demons brought by the old hairy monkey a lesson, shall we? Xiao Shuai rubbed his fists and said, looking more energetic than Muyu. I'm not interested in fighting. Muyu shrugged and yawned. He had been cultivating in the second layer for half a year, and the rich spiritual energy in the second layer had allowed him to reach the ninth layer of the nascent soul stage. Unfortunately, he was too lazy to stand out and fight for these self-righteous cultivators. He was still depressed about being called a traitor by the cultivation world. So how could he be in the mood to stand up for these cultivators? It would be better if he stood out and defeated the demon race. But if he failed and exposed his identity, he would be accused of colluding with the demon race and deliberately losing to them. Chapter 274. Song Wanzi's face was a bit ugly. There were more than 1,000 cultivators present, regardless of gender or age, but none of them met the requirements. None of them were in the ninth layer of yuanying or out-of-body stage. Song Wanzi continued, what about those above the seventh layer of yuanying and out-of-body stage? He lowered the requirement, thinking that many of them might be in closed-door training to break through the bottleneck, so it was understandable that they were not present. Only 2 people stood out, one in the 7th layer of yuanying and the other in the 8th layer of yuanying. Are there no more? Song Wanzi was anxious. Not only were there no cultivators in the 9th layer of yuanying and out-of-body stage, but there were also no cultivators in the 7th or 8th layer of yuanying and out-of-body stage. Disciple Yangli greets Grandmaster. At this moment, a young man's voice came from afar, and then a young man in white landed in the crowd. The young man walked quickly to Song Wanzi and saluted him respectfully. Song Wanzi's eyes lit up when he saw Yang Li's cultivation in the 9th layer of yuanying. He nodded with satisfaction and was very happy that a young genius of his sect could stand out. He said, Yang Li, have you just arrived here? Grandmaster, I was on my way to do something under my master's order. I happened to pass by here, so I came to check it out. Yang Li had indeed just arrived. He didn't know the situation here, nor did he understand why his grandmaster would appear here. He just heard that there was a spiritual aura here, so he came to check it out. Song Wanzi told Yang Li the details of the situation. Yang Li was suddenly enlightened. He looked at the arrogant white ape demon king and solemnly said, Grandmaster, the demon race is so arrogant. Disciple is willing to fight on behalf of the human race. Good, very good. You go and get ready. I'll find the rest of the people. Song Wanzi nodded and turned his eyes to the crowd. With Yang Li, who was in the 9th layer of yuanying, he felt more at ease. He knew his outstanding disciple very well. There was no doubt that Yang Li could help the human race win this battle. Yang Li was a famous figure among the younger generation, and he was on the invitation list of the Floating Immortal Isle. He was on par with Lu Feng, Fairy Meng Xin, and other geniuses from the Floating Immortal Isle. When he went out to train, he killed more than 100 fourth-order demonic beasts and escaped unscathed. One must know that 4th-order demonic beasts were equivalent to the strength of a nascent soul stage cultivator. To be able to escape from more than 100 nascent soul stage demonic beasts, one could see how powerful he was. He had also been part of the expedition to the second heaven. However, he had chosen to find a place to cultivate and had not participated in the matter of the white ape demon king. It was also because of this that his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. Now, he had already reached the ninth firmament of the nascent soul stage and was only a step away from the out-of-body stage. He would become the youngest genius disciple in the history of the Xianling sect to reach the out-of-body stage. Yang Li's appearance made everyone very excited. With a ninth firmament nascent soul stage cultivator in the human race, it was obviously impossible for the demon race to win. They had already begun to imagine the white ape demon king's flustered and exasperated expression. Song Wanzi looked around and only found 7 out-of-body stage cultivators and more than 20 nascent soul stage cultivators. However, among these 20 nascent soul stage cultivators, only Yang Li had reached the ninth firmament of the nascent soul stage. The others were all at the 6th or 7th firmament. As for the out-of-body stage cultivators, they were even more pitiful. The highest was a middle-aged man at the 5th firmament of the out-of-body stage. Those talented youths who were already famous, such as Lian Tianyu, Meng Xian, Lu Feng, and the others, were not present. The White Ape Demon King came here to cause trouble today because of that Mu Yu. He really deserves to die. Seeing that more than 1,000 people couldn't find a suitable candidate, someone immediately began to curse. Yes, if it wasn't for Mu Yu helping the White Ape Demon King, there wouldn't be so many troubles today. Many people echoed. Hearing the discussion in the crowd, Song Wanzi looked at Yuan Hua Daoist and said in an unfriendly tone, "Brother Yuan Hua, your Danding sect has cultivated a good disciple. He caused such a big mess. How impressive." Yuan Hua Daoist calmly said, "Mu Yu is indeed a genius. Unfortunately, this old man has been away for many years and hasn't been able to see this child. It's a pity. He is already the most outstanding alchemist of the younger generation to be able to fuse incomplete pills. Those incomplete pills can't even be fused by us of the older generation. According to Yundan, this child was injured while fusing incomplete pills. I don't know if his foundation was damaged." Yuan Hua Daoist was a person who loved talents. He had heard from Yundan Daoist that Mu Yu could help alchemists remove wood dregs from their bodies. This ability was like rain after a long drought for alchemists. It was something that could only be encountered but not sought. Although this matter was Mu Yu's fault, Yuan Hua Daoist still felt that there should be more to this matter. "Brother Yuan Hua, I'm not here to listen to you praise your disciple. No matter how talented he is, helping the Demon King escape from the second heaven is an unforgivable crime." Song Wanzi impatiently interrupted Yuan Hua Daoist's words. He was very dissatisfied with Yuan Hua Daoist's praise of Mu Yu. Yuan Hua Daoist smiled slightly. "I don't think it's that simple. In fact, you and I both know that even if the White Ape Demon King didn't appear, the rise of the Demon Clan was inevitable. They have been recuperating and enduring for 1,000 years. They have been secretly accumulating strength for a long time. The appearance of the White Ape Demon King only gave them a reason to be more confident. Even if the White Ape Demon King didn't appear, the Demon Clan would have appeared sooner or later. Yes, if the White Ape Demon King didn't appear, we wouldn't be in such an awkward situation at this moment. Yaman's matter has already made many of our sects very busy. Now, another Demon King has appeared. Do we not have enough trouble?" Song Wanzi coldly snorted. Piao Miao Fairy heard this and shook her head. "Actually, I don't think it's a bad thing for the White Ape Demon King to appear at this time. We all know that the Demon Clan will come back sooner or later. Right now, Yaman is wreaking havoc. Before we officially go to war with Yaman, if the Demon Clan comes out at this time, we still have room for negotiation. If we go to war with Yaman, I'm afraid the Demon Clan will take advantage of the situation and we won't be able to defend against them. If the human race and the Yumming Devil Clan went to war again, and the monster race used the Yumming Devil Clan to threaten the human race, the human race would have no choice but to agree to the more barbaric conditions of the monster race in order to prevent the monster race from backstabbing them. Yes, so on this point, Mu Yu actually did a good deed by accident." Yuan Hua Daoist said with a smile. Mu Yu was stunned. Yuan Hua Daoist, whom he had never met before, spoke up for him. This was very rare. However, he pouted. He didn't care if he did a good deed or not. As long as he helped his master recover, many troubles would be solved. Since he did a good deed, who will clean up today's mess? Song Wanzi was annoyed that he couldn't find a person to fight. Yuan Hua Daoist was still speaking up for Muyu. If it wasn't for their many years of friendship, Song Wanzi would have cursed. In the blink of an eye, it was already noon. It was almost time for the battle. Unfortunately, the demon clan still couldn't find a suitable person. If they couldn't, they could only send these people to try their luck. Are you sure you humans have a good person? You still can't find a suitable person after so long? I thought your human race was full of young talents, and any one of them would be able to sweep away all enemies. Am I wrong? White Ape Demon King deliberately hooted in the distance. The mocking tone in his words made all the self-cultivators angry. White Ape Demon King had already marked out a spacious area outside 8 Grass Village for the battle. The 10 demon clansmen he brought were already standing at the entrance of the village. Everyone was in high spirits and full of vigor. Upon closer inspection, the demon clan was shocked. These 10 demon clansmen had the same cultivation. 5 of them were in the 9th heavenly layer of Yuanying, and 5 were in the 9th heavenly layer of out-of-body stage. The 9th heavenly layer of Yuanying and 9th heavenly layer of out-of-body stage represented the most powerful existence in the Yuanying and out-of-body stage. If the demon clan wanted to defeat them, they would have to send out 5 9th heavenly layer of Yuanying and 5 9th heavenly layer of out-of-body stage geniuses. Song Wanzi was furious. He looked around. He had sent people to the nearby Mist Breath City to look for people at the beginning, but there was no news at this time. There were many self-cultivators in Mist Breath City. It shouldn't be difficult to find 9th heavenly layer of Yuanying and 9th heavenly layer of out-of-body stage. But White Ape Demon King was challenging again. Song Wanzi had no choice but to say to the only 9th heavenly layer of Yuanying, Yangli, you go first. Remember, even if you can win, don't win easily. Try to stall for time and wait for the other 9th heavenly layer of Yuanying and 9th heavenly layer of out-of-body stage to come. After a pause, Song Wanzi said again, you must win. If they won the first round, it would boost their morale and dampen the spirit of the demon clan. They would not be so complacent, and it would also give the demon clan some confidence. Yang Li came from the Xianling sect. Song Wanzi was his grandmaster. He was here today by chance, and did not expect to meet his grandmaster. He was flattered to see his grandmaster, and his grandmaster's instructions made him even more confident. When he thought of being able to fight for the demon clan in front of his grandmaster, he immediately became spirited and confident. If he got off to a good start, he would definitely be rewarded by his sect and praised by others in the future. He naturally had to seize this rare opportunity. Don't worry, Grandmaster. I won't let you down, Yang Li said respectfully. Then he took a step and flew into the sky, slowly standing in midair. Yang Li was the #1 young disciple in the Xianling sect. Song Wanzi had personally taught him before. His talent was outstanding, and his comprehension ability was outstanding. He had never let his elders down, so this time, the human race had a 90% chance of winning this round. He released the aura of the 9th heavenly layer of Yuanying without reservation. He did have the right to be proud. It was very rare for him to reach the 9th heavenly layer of Yuanying at such a young age. His cultivation was not inferior to Meng Xian, Lu Feng, and the others. Come on, Yang Li. Teach those little demons who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth a lesson for us. That's right. The demon clan is too arrogant. Let them know that the demon clan is not to be trifled with. Seeing Yang Li's valiant aura, everyone was excited. Those who knew Yang Li knew how powerful he was. He was a genius that they couldn't catch up to. He would definitely be the pillar of the demon clan in the future. The White Ape Demon King lazily looked at Yang Li on the field with a very casual expression. He turned a deaf ear to the surrounding cultivators' condemnation and even picked his ears out of boredom. The first round is a nascent soul battle. Well, Xiao Ming, you go up. Remember to end it quickly, but don't kill people. The white ape demon king deliberately said the words, "Don't kill," very loudly and with emphasis. The ridicule in his tone was obvious. Bastard. Too arrogant. Songwon Zi's face was livid. Being looked down upon before the fight even started, the anger in his heart had accumulated to the extreme. But when he saw Yang Li's calm appearance, he felt a little relieved. With Yang Li's ability, it was not a problem to deal with the Demon Clan. He set his eyes on the Demon Clan member who came up and sneered in his heart. "I want to see how long you Demon Clan can be arrogant." Yes, Lord Demon King. Xiongming was a robust demon bear. He had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear. His eyes still had the characteristics of a bear. He rubbed his palms and walked to the large open space that the white ape had specially cleared. He stared at Yang Li in the air. "Demon Clan, Xiongming." Xiongming's deep voice came. He cupped his hands in greeting. Surprisingly, he still knew etiquette. "Human Clan, Yang Li." Yang Li's flying sword was already floating in front of him. He didn't take Xiongming seriously. In his view, Xiongming was just a stepping stone for him to become a hero of the Demon Clan. Chapter 275. The sword's shadow soared into the sky and collided with the bear shadow, stirring up thousands of waves of air and rolling out. Bang! With a loud noise, a shadow quickly fell from the sky and hit the ground, creating a big pit on the ground. All the cultivators held their breaths as they stared at the scene in shock. The whole place was silent. Not a single sound could be heard. After one move, Yang Li lay on the ground and fell into a coma. No one expected that Yang Li, who was also in the 9th firmament of the nascent soul stage, would be defeated by Xiongming in one move. Xiongming used the simplest and most violent move. He shattered Yang Li's flying sword with one punch and directly hit Yang Li's chest, blasting him to the ground. This punch not only knocked down Yang Li, who was in the 9th firmament of the nascent soul stage, but also hit the heart of all the self-cultivators, making their hearts skip a beat. Everyone looked at Yang Li, whose chest had caved in horror. This was one of the strongest young talents in the nascent soul stage. Even Zhuofeng Jian of the Sword-Washing Valley and Meng Xian of the Jade School didn't dare to say that they could defeat Yang Li, let alone win in one move. But no one expected that the strength of the bear demon had reached such a terrifying level. "I didn't use too much strength." Xiongming touched his head honestly and showed an honest smile. His smile was like a taunt in the eyes of the self-cultivators, making them clench their fists. Yang Li was defeated, thoroughly defeated. Songwon Zi's face was so livid that water was about to come out. There is only one person in the 9th firmament of the nascent soul stage here, and he was from his sect and was valued by him. He thought it was more than enough to deal with a bear demon. Songwon Zi even specially told Yang Li not only to win the first match, but also to delay for other people in the 9th firmament of the nascent soul stage and the 9th firmament of the out-of-body stage. But now it seemed a little ridiculous. Delay my ass. The bear demon only used one punch to knock you down. The expression on the white ape demon king's face didn't change. When Xiongming knocked down Yang Li, he even yawned. Seeing Xiongming walk back while touching his head after winning, he frowned slightly and deliberately scolded. "Little bear, didn't I tell you to go easy on him? We're here today to make friends through martial arts, not to hurt anyone. Didn't I tell you not to go overboard?" "Lord Demon King, I was already very gentle. I only used 50% of my strength." Xiongming's expression was still somewhat aggrieved. All the self-cultivators were furious. The white ape demon king was a typical example of someone who had taken advantage of others and was still acting innocent. What do you mean by making friends through martial arts? Beating someone up like this is making friends through martial arts? Could he be any more shameless? However, no one dared to say anything because Xiongming had only shown the aura of the nascent soul stage from the beginning to the end. He did not hide his strength, nor did he play any tricks. It was just a direct punch, which made the hearts of everyone present sink to the bottom. Were the demon race really that strong? It's not that the Yao clan is strong. It's just that we humans have been living a peaceful life for too long. We've forgotten that the Yao clan is no weaker than humans. Yuan Hua shook his head slightly. 1,000 years ago, the human race, the monster race, and the Yumeng devil race had been fighting against each other. The human race was very familiar with the Yumeng devil race and the monster race. They knew their weaknesses and knew how to defeat them. However, 1,000 years ago, the Yao clan suffered a crushing defeat. 100 years ago, Yumon was suppressed. If humans wanted to become stronger, they could only fight against each other. Their opponents were all humans. Today, the Yao clan took action. These young people still had the mentality of fighting against humans. Losing was inevitable. They only knew the characteristics of a Yao clan from the ancient records of their sections. How could they have any actual combat experience against the Yao clan? Song Wanzi sighed. Yuan Hua was right. The young people nowadays knew too little about the Yao clan and lacked a sense of crisis. This disadvantage was revealed in the first round of the competition. Now, the Yao clan was secondary. The most important thing was Yumon. You could bargain with the Yao clan, but there was no room for negotiation with Yumon. If these young people of the human race who have been living a peaceful life for a long time directly confronted Yumon, they would probably be defeated in a single blow. Is the second round a competition between Yuanying stage or out-of-body stage? My Xiongming is the weakest. White Ape asked lazily. He already knew that the humans were going to call for reinforcements. These people were just stalling for time, so he told the bear demon not to show any mercy. He didn't give the humans any chance to stall for time, and Xiongming didn't let him down. He won cleanly. It would be strange if the so-called friendship through martial arts was true. Song Wanzi shook his head slightly. Yuanying stage 9th firmament stage Yang Li couldn't even last one blow from the Yao clan. The other Yuanying stage cultivators were no match for the Yao clan either. As for out-of-body stage cultivators, he had no hope at all. The strongest out-of-body stage cultivator was only 5th firmament out-of-body stage. He was afraid that he would lose even more miserably in the hands of the 9th firmament out-of-body stage Yao clan. What was frustrating was that many outstanding disciples of the human race weren't present. That was why the Yao clan was so arrogant. But on second thought, Yang Li was already in the category of outstanding. Even he was defeated like this. Even if the other so-called outstanding disciples came, what hope did they have to win? Everyone had more or less heard of the really famous younger generation of the human race. These people were almost the same. Yang Li was also a young outstanding disciple who was talked about enthusiastically by everyone. He was not worse than the others, but he was still no match for the Yao clan. Perhaps there was no one in the younger generation who could defeat the Yao clan. Disappointment began to grow in the hearts of every cultivator. The excellent Yang Li lost. Who's next? Song Wanzi sighed and looked at the remaining 9 people he had selected. These people had the highest cultivation among the people present. One of them was even a middle-aged man in 5th firmament out-of-body stage. He was completely different from the younger generation, but he could only be used to make up the numbers. Song Wanzi didn't pin his hope on these people. His original plan was to let Yuanying stage 9th firmament stage Yang Li stall for time and spread the news so that the other 9th firmament stage, Yuanying stage, and 9th firmament out-of-body stage cultivators could come. If they couldn't, then he would let these people fight. But now, it seemed that even if the 9th firmament stage, Yuanying stage, and 9th firmament out-of-body stage cultivators came, it would be useless. At the same time, Yuanying stage 9th firmament stage, Yuanying stage, Yang Li couldn't even withstand a punch from the demon race. No matter who it was, there was no hope. Everyone looked at each other. The cultivators who were enthusiastic and wanted to fight for the glory of the human race were now speechless. Yang Li's end was obvious to all. It left a deep shadow in their hearts. Even an excellent person like Yang Li couldn't win. What could they do? Those out-of-body stage cultivators were also panicking. Although they were more powerful than Yuanying stage cultivators, they would also be facing out-of-body stage demons. In out-of-body stage, the 9th firmament and the 5th firmament were worlds apart. Is there no one else? Song Wanzi was extremely disappointed in these juniors. Even if they lost, they should lose fair and square. What do they mean by winning without fighting? Was the younger generation of the human race's cultivation world so weak now? I'll go. A middle-aged man in fifth firmament out-of-body stage stood up. His name was Sunbang, and he was from a small sect. Everyone didn't have any hope for him, including himself. But Sunbang still wanted to take a gamble. He felt that the human race could be defeated, but they couldn't admit defeat. We can't let the demon race think that the human race doesn't even have the courage to fight. Sunbang's face was very dignified, and there was even a hint of death in his eyes. Songwon Z patted Sunbang's shoulder and said, "Be careful." The words "be careful" were completely superfluous. Just now, Xiongming defeated Yongli in a flash, which showed that this was no longer a matter that could be dealt with by being careful. Sunbang's courage was praised by many people. But courage alone was not enough to fight for the human race. Absolute strength was also needed. Sunbang floated in the air and looked at the demon race. A cyan wolf demon flashed out from the demon race. The cyan wolf demon cupped his hands and saluted again. It didn't give people the impression of being barbaric at all. The monster race's 1,000 years of recuperation were not just for fun. In order to be able to fight against the human race, not only did they strive to become stronger in terms of cultivation, but they had also undergone tremendous changes in their mental state and appearance. The demon race had been improving themselves and becoming stronger. But the human race had been at ease for too long and naively thought that the demon race was still a barbaric race. Human race, Sunbang. Demon race, cyan wolf demon. A cyan shadow flashed. Sunbang activated his flying sword and intertwined with the cyan wolf demon. In just a breath's time, Sunbang, who was at the 5th layer of the out-of-body stage, was heavily smashed into the ground by the cyan wolf demon, who was at the 9th layer of the out-of-body stage. The demon race had a sense of propriety. Today, they came only to humiliate the human race, not to kill. Therefore, other than Sunbang falling into a coma due to external injuries, his foundation wasn't damaged. Defeated again, everyone was in low spirits. At first, they thought that they could ruthlessly defeat the demon race's arrogance, but the 2 people they sent out in a row had been utterly defeated. In front of the demon race, they didn't even have the slightest chance to fight back. We've won 2 rounds in a row and won the right to use the spiritual energy for 2 months. We gave you a chance at the beginning, but unfortunately, you stubbornly only wanted to fight 10 rounds. You can't blame us for this. The white ape demon king's arrogant voice once again clearly entered the ears of every human cultivator. As if they had been ruthlessly slapped in the face by the demon race, everyone's face was burning with pain. At this juncture, no one was willing to stand up for the human race. It was really ridiculous. Muyu, are you really not going to fight? Your human race has been ravaged by the old hairy monkey, Xiao Shuai quietly asked. Muyu also didn't know that the cultivators of the 3 continents were shouting and cursing at him. They inverted right and wrong and praised the people of the gate of hell who had done all kinds of evil as a noble person who fought against the demon king. Was it really necessary for him to stand up for such a ridiculous cultivation world? Even if he won, so what? The Demon King's goal wasn't the spiritual energy of this village at all. He was just looking for an opportunity to show off his power to the human race. Now his goal had been achieved. The human race of the 3 continents had been living comfortably for so many years. It was time for them to reflect. However, he knew that he was also a member of the human race. The demon race had already humiliated him. Could he just sit back and watch? I don't want to fight. Muyu shook his head. He didn't want to expose himself. However, at this moment, a clear voice came from the distance. It was a woman's voice. When it resounded in Muyu's ears, it made Muyu feel as if he had heard a clap of thunder. He was stunned on the spot. I've come to experience your demon race. Tian Ran stepped on the immortal dew sword and leisurely descended like a green fairy. Her graceful figure was like an otherworldly fairy, so admirable. This was a pure girl, so pure that people couldn't bear to blaspheme her. Muyu felt a burst of joy in his heart. It was actually Tion Ran. It really was Tion Ran. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.